Welcome, everyone. We are Heavy Metallurgy. It's good to see you. Hope you've had a good week. It's Friday, and we've got a much talked about deep dive to do today. And Alan, good to see you as always. How have you been?
Doing all right. Yep, busy week, but no big problems. Been doing a lot of homework on this assignment for several months now, actually. So yeah, looking forward to getting into this one, as are some other folks. Including, let's see, I don't know how to pronounce this one. If you can handle, I guess. So, yep. Tim's also really excited for this one. James is in the chat and ready to learn more about Rage as well. So, but we've got a few things to do before we dive in.
Yeah, and welcome back, our friend from Germany, Jurgen. It's good to see you as always. Always great to have you join the show and to see you. We don't talk enough because you're not on social media. You're not a 13-year-old girl like some of us are on the inside. It's good to see you. How have you been doing? What's been going on?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just woke up 2 hours ago and I had toothache, but it's all right now. So yeah, I've been doing research on Rage since 1987. So yeah, not a big problem.
Yep, and it's I think we've got the perfect gentleman for the job tonight.
Absolutely. So yeah, Jurgen's in a better place than Metal Kev here, who's he's cramming for tonight. Absolutely, but that is cool. We appreciate the dedication. That's die-hard style right there, Kev. Good on you.
And the good thing about it is, if it was bad, he wouldn't have spun 20 in a row. That's just a good indicator of what lies ahead here for our discussion. I think, anyway.
Well, he might, but no, I don't think Kev is that kind of masochist or anything. So you are correct.
Right on. Well, Jurgen, talk about 6 Beers, 9 Wives. 6 Beers, 9. Yeah. I get confused. Right. I get it confused. You've been busy. There's been a lot of videos here the last month or so, and it's been awesome. What's been inspired? What's lit the fire? What's got you going again?
I don't know. I had more time on my hands. I listened to a little bit more music, got a couple of new records and CDs in. So yeah, when I'm in the mood, I do videos. When I'm not in the mood, it might take 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. So yeah.
Yep, it's good. It's good to see you. One of my favorite YouTubers for sure. I know a lot of people agree with that. And but we're here tonight. We have a lot to talk about, so we're going to just kind of cut to the chase. We announced, was it last year, we would maybe be doing a Rage deep dive, and people have been excited for it, and the day has finally come. And for those who may not know anything about Rage, I'm going to regurgitate some of the Wikipedia stuff, which take with a grain of salt. Rage is a German heavy metal band formed in 1984 by Peter P.V. Wagner. They were part of the German heavy speed power metal scene that emerged in the early to mid 80s and are considered part of the Big Four alongside Gravedigger, Halloween, and Running Wild. Rage was formed in 84 under the name Avenger after releasing their debut album Prayers of Steel and Depraved to Black EP in 85. The band changed their name to Rage due to the existence of another band in England with the same name. Over the years, 17 musicians have been part of Rage, with the most successful lineup emerging during the period known as the Refuge years, featuring Manny Schmidt and Chris Medis. I don't know. The second notable lineup included Mike Terena and Victor Smolsky. Throughout the years, Rage has established themselves as a notably successful band and pioneers of the power metal scene, incorporating elements of progressive metal and classical music into their music. If you want to read more about that, go over to their Wikipedia page. But and I would follow up on that. 17 different musicians throughout the years. Most of them have been guitar players. No, that's not true. There's been several eras of guitar players. And even though there's been subtle differences throughout, the thing that's really amazing, it seems like the people that join Rage understand the assignment, and Rage sounds like Rage. Subtle differences here and there for sure, but what do you guys think about that after sitting here in the last couple of weeks and processing an entire body of work, full length wise?
Yeah, I think there's bands that have way less releases and way more musicians in their lineup. So I would call Rage over the decades a pretty consistent band.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's during the first couple of years, it crystallized out that Peavy is the leader of the band. So yeah.
Though I will say, going through some of these records and looking at the songwriting credits, he does give a lot of freedom to his guitar players. I mean, some of the Victor albums, he's written half of it, you know, and I think that it's all kind of that way. It's been kind of interesting to see, even though there's someone else meddling in the sound, in the song composition and creation, it still, again, sounds like Rage. It's pretty impressive.
Mhm.
What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, it's a very consistent band, as will probably be said many times tonight. But there are changes over the years too. Certain things do shift. One thing I found really interesting about them is they don't just shift in one direction. Like sometimes a band will start out in a certain style, kind of drift in a different direction, and it's usually a one-way ticket. That they just kind of go into a different style over time, and they don't come back unless the new style completely bombs, or they hop on the nostalgia train and just go back and start remaking the old classics again. Rage's catalog is not linear that way. Rage will try something for a couple of years, and then they may back off of that for a while, only to come back to it and do something similar 3 or 4 albums later. So they kind of keep you on your toes a bit. It's not a catalog where you can say, oh, I know exactly what the next Rage album is going to sound like because I've heard the last 5. It's like, you might have a pretty good idea. As soon as you hear it, it will be identifiable as Rage. But there are times they lean a bit more power metal. There are times they lean a bit more thrashy. There are times they've done some symphonic stuff. But yeah, it's not just like clearly all those albums fall into like, here's their thrash phase and then they never do that again. Or here's their 3 power metal albums and they never did that again. So it's an interesting catalog in that regard, that even though it is consistent and they're not doing things wildly outside the box, they don't go from being heavy metal to hardcore or new metal or something, but there are some change-ups in the catalog along the way, which definitely made it interesting to work through and see which albums kind of fall into which particular pattern or style.
And the thing about those change-ups, if I could add, we'll obviously get into it as we go, but the change-ups and the experimentations, it kind of comes off as musical songwriting maturity. None of them really felt like failures. Like, nothing really was a failure to me. I don't know. It was, we're going to be picking our top 5 favorites and our least 5 favorites. And I had a really hard time deciding the least favorites. I really did. Because there's nothing here that's like, there's one album that I would consider my least favorite, but it's not because it's bad. It just isn't, they get better. You know what I mean? But yeah, I like their symphonic elements that they do. They think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Marty. And yeah, just to reiterate, we're just going to pick top 5 and bottom 5 at the end of the discography. We've talked about it a lot over the past couple of weeks about, do we want to rank these? Do we want to put these on a tier list? The bottom line is there are so many albums, and as we've already said, they're very consistent, that both of those approaches felt kind of weird. It's like, there's going to be very little difference between our 6th favorite and our 16th favorite, so the numbers just kind of become a mess. And the same thing would happen with tier list. Is like, well, there's going to be maybe a few on this tier, then there's going to be 18 on the next tier, and maybe just a couple on the tier below that. So trying to rank everything just didn't really make sense to us for this particular catalog. So we'll talk about every album. You'll know what we like and don't like. But yeah, at the very end, we will list the top 5 and bottom 5. But I had the same problem, Marty, in terms of defining a bottom 5. There's a few that definitely pretty quickly sank to the bottom. But by the time I was trying to pick like the 4th or 5th, like, well, that album's really not that bad. So it feels weird to have it in the worst 5. But yeah, it speaks to the overall quality of the catalog.
Yeah, I have something to add. The consistency of the songwriting over the first decade, I would say, maybe the first 15 years, they expanded their toolbox, so they can grab different stuff, and they improved the toolbox. They don't have the cheap tools from the supermarket, so they have the high end tools.
Yep.
And nowadays, the last album, we're going to talk about that, of course. The last album, you can see they grabbed all the tools, I would
Yeah.
say.
21 songs, a 2-album collection this late in a band's career that isn't filled with filler. It's amazing. It really is amazing. I struggle to find a song on there that made me go, ugh, not a good song. There isn't one. There's some that are exceptional, and they typically stack that's one thing Rage does. They typically stack their best stuff forward. The albums can be top loaded, the second side, but the second side is always good. There's still good songs. The great ones are typically in the first 5, I found. But
it's one of the bands that know exactly what to release before an album comes out, or what to choose as a video track.
Yeah.
They have a good hand in that.
Yep. Well, it's a band that knows what they are, and I think they realize that they've got something that is special. So I think they just know themselves really well, and that's, you see an album that's over an hour long, and you're like, God, I wish this band self-edited more, and then to sit and listen to the album, I'm skipping through my third listen through this stuff. I'm skipping through the tracks, and even the last 2 tracks on the album are like, God, they're solid tracks. I mean, if I'd hate to see, it'd be interesting to see what he throws away. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. Anyway, we're going on and on here, but were you gonna say something else?
If you want to understand the history of Rage, what we are going to talk now. Unfortunately, this book only came out in German language. Soundchaser. It's 40 years of Rage, and 60 years of PV. So added up, that is 100 years. And it's translated. It's called Heavy Metal Lifelong. So I've got mine signed by him. Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be a translation of that, but very good book. So you understand what we're going to talk about a little bit better. Yeah.
Right on. What were you going to say, Alan?
Oh, just before we jumped in, this has nothing to do with tonight's show, but I want to do a quick plug for our buddy Kellen. Kellen posted a really interesting video on the Polish black metal scene over on his channel, Killing for Company. Yeah. So for anybody that hasn't checked that out yet, make some time to go check it out. He's got some interesting bands featured in there. Certainly ones I had never heard of, but I started looking into them pretty much even before his video was over. So just wanted to shout that out. Kellen doesn't post a ton of videos on his channel, but they're all very, very high quality. So if that sounds interesting to anyone, you want to dive into some Polish black metal. He gives a very good historical account, not just of the scene, but of the country, kind of how that influences the music. Definitely go check that out. So yep, promo spot completed. Back to Rage.
All right. Well, we're gonna fire this discography discussion off with, hey George, thanks a bunch, man. You're too kind.
You, George. Really do appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you. What was I going to say? Oh,
I think we're going to launch this boat.
We're going to launch the boat. We have a lot to talk about.
So yeah, Rage is a little bit similar to the Overkill discography. If you have watched the Overkill ranking with Darcy here on the channel, Overkill counted their first EP as an album. So the numbers, we're gonna see that. And Rage did the same. They count that one as their first album. So this is Avenger. This came out in 1985. This is their first full length. PV on bass and vocals. Yeah. It pretty much sounds like early Rage. Yeah, it's speedy heavy metal. then they released that one just before they changed the name to Furious Rage. And in comes famous Karl Ulrich Walterbach from Noise Records, who changed their name. It was not the band. He didn't ask them if he could change the name. He just said, no, you're not Furious Rage, you're Rage.
Yep.
Period. So in 1968, yeah, 1986.
They were really ahead of their time early on.
Yeah. The first speed metal album ever. See, it's almost got a black and white cover, so there was no color TV there. So Reign of Fear was the first album released on Noise Records. Pretty much the same lineup as on the Avenger days. This is a continuation. This is just speedy and thrashy heavy metal. And the funny thing is, they still, when they play live, they still play stuff from that album.
Wow.
So yeah, a song like Suicide, if you listen to that in another production, with another production, you can put it on any record of that. So it was a good start for the band. So the contract they got a longer contract with Noise Records. What else to say? Yeah, like I said, it's speedy heavy metal, a little bit evil topics in the lyrics. That came from the Avenger days. In Avenger, they had a competition. The guitar player and PB wrote lyrics, and they had the competition who wrote the most evil lyrics. And that continued on here. So I assume a couple of these songs were written for Avenger.
Mm.
So yeah.
That would make sense. They probably were planning another record and decided there was another Avenger and had to change her name.
Yeah.
Yep.
So overall, great start for the band. Good production on the album.
It is.
Yeah. Produced by Ralf Hubert, who is the main man in Mekong Delta.
Huh. Okay.
And recorded at Horror Sound Studios, and Horror Sound Studios is the main guy from Eloy who owns that studio. Eloy is a German prog.
A good one too. Yep. Based on the little I've heard, yeah. It was cool.
So yeah, 11 songs on the album. Not a real stinker. Yeah. Embryonic Rage.
Right on. All right. Alan, what'd you think of the debut?
Yeah, even backing up to the Avenger, Prayers of Steel is a cool album for sure. And yeah, the EP, just trivia, was done as a compromise to get them out of their deal. The Prayers of Steel album came out on Wishbone Records, which was the first label to offer them a contract. And the guys recognized pretty early on that Wishbone, while the folks there were nice, they weren't really equipped to help bands, climb the ladder. So they asked to get out of their contract. The owner of Wishbone was pretty cool about it. He's like, I tell you what, do one EP for me and I'll let you walk out of the contract. So that's why we had the EP come out. And then, Walter Beck picks them up and changes their name. PV said that literally they did not know until they saw the record on the shelves in their own record store that their band was called Rage instead of Furious Rage. To be fair, it was probably the right choice.
Yeah.
The name Rage holds up a lot better than I think Furious.
That wouldn't be the only time that's happened to that band.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later.
But that does not mean it wasn't a total jerk move whatsoever to go and change it behind their back. But it probably did work out better in the long run than the moniker Furious Rage would have. So yeah, that brings us up to Reign of Fear. This is one I heard back as a teenager, and initially it never really blew me away. It always struck me as being a bit one-dimensional. Like Jurgen said, it is a speed metal album through and through. It's very fast. It's a little bit loose. The vocal performance, though, is really, really good. This is a young PV. When he's got that high range, so he can really let out some cool higher end screams. I will say the album has held up a lot better over time than I expected it to. I hadn't listened to it in ages until, again, we started talking about this over the holidays. So, again, I've been going back to these albums a lot over the past, I guess it's been almost 6 months now. I was surprised at how well Reign of Fear has held up for me. Like Jurgen said, there's really not a bad song on it. You do see something here early on with Rage that does define them a lot over the years. They never fit completely into just one style. While this is, very much a ton of speed metal, they do lean a little bit, in the thrash direction at times. They're borrowing a little bit maybe from, the sloppier end of early German thrash, which is not a bad thing to borrow from whatsoever. So, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, they're very, very fast, speedy, work in a few thrash elements. Are they thrash? Are they speed? Well, they're like 70% one and 30% the other, let's say. So yeah, the album has held up much better than I anticipated. It's been cool getting to revisit that one. And it, has held up well. I see why this album is still held in high regard by a lot of fans to this day. If you'd asked me a year ago, I wouldn't have had that opinion. But getting to revisit it, like, this one kind of picks up where Avenger left off and just keeps moving forward. It's funny because I always liked the Avenger album, but this one, it didn't click with me when I first heard it back as a teenager. But now I do like it quite a bit. So a good start. And Marty, what are your thoughts on the Rage debut here in the early years?
Well, Darcy sent this to me. I've heard it, but I never picked up a copy of it. And having to sit down and listen to it since he sent it to me, you're right, Alan. This album is held up a lot better than I totally missed this. My first Rage record was Secrets in a Weird World, so I worked backwards from there, but I could never find this one here. So I don't know. I was pretty surprised. It's aggressive speed metal. It's pure in German to the core, which I love. Razor sharp guitar tone. I really like the fact that even though there's a well-produced buzzsaw guitar, the bass cuts through the middle of it perfectly. And I think the thing that instantly sets Rage apart is PV's vocals. He has a completely unique singing style. His more melodious speaking in the verses and then kicking up into the higher register for those, piercing, soaring screams for the choruses. It's something he has maintained throughout the years and gotten better at. A lot better singer as he's gone on. But regarding Reign of Fear, my favorites are the first two tracks, Scared to Death and Deceiver. They're both a ripping mission statement for the record. On the title track, they slow it down a bit. And it's funny that Jurgen mentioned that Suicide, if you put a different production on it, would sound more like Rage Today. And I wrote down, Suicide also feels like an indicator of where the band would evolve to when the speed metal eventually subsided. I've got all these words that I wrote here in the last couple days that I'm not going to be saying tonight, but I do like after that Machinery gets a bit more aggressive towards the end of the album. And they ended on a 9-minute track to show their dedication to longer pieces of music, which we'll get into as it goes on here. But it does kind of end the album on a bit of a flatter note, but it's still impressive that there was that much ambition to write such a long song and in this style. I said it, this is an album I wish I had back in the day, as it fits perfectly within where I was at as a teenager. German thrash / speed / heavy metal. It rules, and it's the law as far as I'm concerned, still to this day. But yeah, I think it's a great record. It's a good start. Granted, PV considers this to be their second album, as the Avenger would be the debut. I like the Avenger record. I listened to it today for the first time, but I think this one is a bit more aggressive, which I think was the right direction to go, especially for the time, which was, what year was this? We didn't talk about that.
86.
86.
Or Angel of Fear, or for Reign of Fear. Yep.
Yeah. Which brings us to 1987. Execution Guaranteed. I get Jurgen over here. Too many buttons to push. There we go.
Already the following year, as usual in the mid-80s, the next year they released Execution Guaranteed, their second album. Like you said, the first album has that razor sharp guitar sound and all the instruments. You can hear that. You can hear everything separately. This one has a little bit of a muddy sound. That was my introduction to Rage. So that one was the first one I heard. I think it was early '88, just before the next album came out. Yeah, also noise production on that one. They still had Jörg Michael on drums, who later became the drummer for Stratovarius and several other bands. And we've got Rudi Graf on here, and Rudi Graf played guitar for Warlock before that. And he was trying to do a little bit more of the commercial stuff, but PV had the saying in the band. So yeah, it sounds a little bit like a compromise. Don't get me wrong, it's still a thrashy speed metal album with heavy metal tendencies mixed all together. A great little album, Down by Law. The opening track is a classic. They also play that live. They still play that live. Street Wolf has funny lyrics. Execution Guaranteed, the title track, is great. Grapes of Wrath. And the first song on the second side, Deadly Error, they already started to experiment a little bit with sound elements. So weird analog computer noises on here, something like that. A couple of years ago, that one was released. And this is the double LP version, and it's got a remix of the album. But I think I'm used to the original mix, so yeah, that remix is nice to hear. It's a little bit cleaned up, and you can hear the separation between the instruments. But yeah, I prefer the original one. Just if you want to check out Execution Guaranteed and you can't cope with the sound of it, try the remix version. You might like that better.
One nice thing about all these reissues and stuff and remixes is on Spotify, if you're going to listen to them digitally, they have the remastered version and the original version of the albums on Spotify. So I thought that was handy. I tend to listen to the original mixes because, I'm kind of the same way. I want to hear it the way it was intended.
So yeah, this one is not only remastered, it is actually remixed.
Right on.
So yeah, sounds quite different.
All right. Alan.
Okay. Just a couple of general points to touch on that have kind of come up with comments that y'all made and also coming up in the chat. There's sort of a issue of access to Rage material in the United States. They were never a band that was really promoted or hyped a lot. And as such, their albums have never been the easiest ones to, stumble into. Even just looking around on Discography, you don't see a lot of copies from American sellers even at this point, which is annoying and makes it a little hard to really dig into the band. Back to our point about the band having slightly different styles and not fitting into something too. Devin brought this up, that it is something that may have held the band back a little bit. I mean, obviously they've had a long productive career. At the same time, they were never pushed to the front in the noise stable of bands. Walter Packers made the comment that he always felt the band suffered from a lack of image. That he couldn't say here, this is my crazy speed metal band, like early Halloween, or here, this is my over the top satanic Hellhammer, Celtic Frost avant-garde band. That Rage having this kind of slight blend of elements just kind of sits in the middle of all those styles. And so when people are like, well, I like thrash metal, well, I like Rage, it's like, well, you might, but they're not thrash. It's like, well, I like power metal, well, I like Rage. It's like, well, you might, but they're not strictly power metal. So yeah, it was a really good point Devin brought up, that that blend of styles is interesting, but it is something that may have held them down a little bit, at least early on in their career. Okay, on to Execution Guaranteed. Jurgen's exactly right about the production. Yeah, a very kind of muddy sound, not a real good production job. They reportedly recorded the album live at first, but didn't like the way the sound was coming out. So then Walter had to hire somebody else to try to basically retcon the whole production job. So yeah, apparently it was a little bit of a mess from day one. And this one for me, it's staying in the same style as Reign of Fear. This album has never really clicked for me, even revisiting it now. It's not that it's bad. It's doing the same kinds of things as Reign of Fear. I just feel like between the iffy production and a lot of the songs just don't seem as strong. It has good moments, but for me, Jurgen mentioned the opening track, Down by Law, is still in the live catalog. That's cool. I'm not really a fan of that song. To me, it feels very one-dimensional. They keep going back and repeating just that one-line chorus, I am down by law, a little too often. It gets very repetitive, and the same thing happens to a few other songs here. Does have some good tracks. My favorite's actually the closer, which is When You're Dead. That's, an outstanding track for sure. So there's good tracks on it. But overall, yeah, this album is always not sat right with me. And it may actually have bled over. I was just realizing this while Jurgen was talking about it. He said this was his first experience with Rage. My first experience with Rage was that I got both of these first two albums at the exact same time. They both showed up at a local record store used. So I bought Reign of Fear and Execution Guaranteed. And so I was kind of listening to both of them at the same time. And looking back on it, that's probably not a good way to approach it. They may have kind of, run together a bit. And since Execution Guaranteed was not sitting with me, I wonder if that didn't kind of color my impression of Reign of Fear at the time too. So yeah, while it's certainly not a terrible album or anything like that, this is not one of my favorites in the Rage catalog. Even though it's got some songs I really like, the sound kind of irritates me. And they do move on to much, much stronger material pretty darn soon. So this tends to be an album I can skip over in the catalog pretty easily. So that would be my take on it. Marty, what is your take on Execution Guaranteed?
Well, I'm going to show it because I plucked it out of the thing.
Sure.
Yeah, this album to me is, this is the first time I ever heard Rage, and it was Before the Storm, The Secret Affair, which was on the first Doomsday News compilation. So that was my first interaction with Rage, and I love that comp, front to back. I love this song, but there's no denying you put that song on that comp. Rage was a standout. They fit, but they didn't fit. They sounded very German, but it wasn't that aggressive thrash that, Creator or the Halloween or the other stuff that was on there, Scanner, more of power metal, heavy metal thing. But it took me a minute to warm up to the song, but when I did, I ended up really enjoying it. So when I finally got this record late, because again, never saw it around, I was psyched that Before the Storm was on there. But for the most part, for me, this album, I struggle with the production. The production is kind of wonky. It does work, but it's a bit flatter, like you guys had mentioned. A lot of reverb on the drums, which kind of makes them stand out a bit in the mix, which I think the drummer he gets the job done, but he's not a super technical or flashy drummer. So you take maybe your weakest link and put them really high in the mix, it becomes a distraction for me. But I think the speed metal edge still exists at times on the record, but it's clear in the songs throughout this record that Rage are starting to move away from that and kind of into more of a heavy metal approach when it suits them, and of course it ends up suiting them very well. I did like Down by Law. It's kind of an atypical song, but it's a ripper, and I can see why they fired off the album with it. Title track, a little bit more adventurous in structure, and within the ideas of the song, come different interesting guitar sounds on here. And then you get some synths creeping in too, which a thrash or heavy metal or speed metal band for that time doing that, it's a little different. But it's obviously something that they're going to do a bit more moving forward as well. You can tell they're maturing as songwriters, but they're not quite there yet. I just don't think they're quite there yet. But yeah, Before the Storm is my favorite track on here just because of the nostalgia factor. What else do I have here notes wise? I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. Drums super simplistic with that kick snare polka beat type of thing, but that I'm talking about Before the Storm. But Peavy's vocals, he soars in it and just sets this song apart. It's really good. Street Wolf follows it up, slower, more sleazy flow. Again, this is a band. It seems like they're kind of trying to find a way out of the speed metal thing into something new. And there's mixed results on this record. I don't dislike the record. And when I put it on, there's a nostalgic kind of vibe to it. But yeah, we're going to be getting. I jump things here. I don't know. Yeah, next one. Secrets. Oh, Perfect Man is next.
Yeah.
Jurgen. My notes are a disaster.
So yeah, 1988, the old lineup fell apart, and it was only Peavy or Peter Wagner. We haven't mentioned that yet. Only Peavy was left from the lineup, so he really didn't know what to do. But he grew up with a Greek guy, and this Greek guy learned to play drums. His name was Chris F. Timias. And they got together and they found a guitar player. So yeah, only a year later, they released Perfect Man. This is a pretty defining album for the band, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The riffing from Manny Schmidt is totally different from what they've done before, but the music is still the same. So Manny Schmidt has a very odd way of constructing songs. His riffing is odd at some time.
Middle Eastern at times. No, I'm thinking Victor.
Right?
I'm thinking Victor. Never mind.
No, well, Middle Eastern. You can hear that in there as well. Yeah.
The Victor and Manny did kind of share some qualities. That's why I'm maybe confusing them a little bit, but they definitely. I see why they picked Victor to replace Manny. Because Anyway, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. So first time we've got their mascot on here, the Soundchaser, already in '88, still following the band a little bit like Eddie or Vic Rattlehead or Snaggletooth or whatever. So this is always a good focal point for a band. If you see that guy in the shelves, yeah. So they didn't have two guitar players, but you can hear that on the album. And on Perfect Man, they had their first video track. So they made a video for "Don't Fear the Winter," and it is one of their biggest hits. Still playing that live. "Death in the Afternoon," the song that follows, in the same vein. A lot of songs on the album, so it's got 12 songs, but they are all short and very memorable. So yeah, 3-piece lineup. One fun fact about the album is whenever Richard Christie, the old Death drummer, or the last drummer in Death, and George Corpse Grinder Fisher, whenever they meet, they put on that record because they love it.
Great record. Yeah.
Yeah, and production on that one is pretty spot on. Yeah, like you needed it for a speedy, thrash, heavy metal band.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents about the album.
All right, Alan.
All right. Yeah, as Jurgen's pointed out, another album comes out very fast, even though the band is essentially rebuilt from scratch. This was really common in the noise stable of bands. Walter Bach wanted these bands churning out an album basically every year, and a lot of them kept to that schedule pretty close, which is why some of these bands have such long catalogs. When you look at their early output, in the first 5 years, they'd have 5 albums put out. Maybe they'd skip 1 year out of, like the first 6 or 7 years at most. So before the 80s were even over, a lot of these bands would have 5, 6, 7 albums under their belt. And even though it's a quick turnaround, this is definitely a change in Rage history. This is kind of entering the second phase, like Jurgen said. You go with kind of a classic 3-man lineup here with Mammy on guitar. I think this is the period that a lot of folks kind of recognize as the golden era of Rage. This is the lineup a lot of people connect with. And they've got a good lineup for about 5 albums in a row here. So it becomes a pretty stable core.
Yep.
Those first 2 albums are kind of Mark 1 Rage. I guess we could call this Mark 2 Rage if we want to borrow some Deep Purple terminology for no reason. And yeah, it's a really good album. This one, brings in the mascot. Looks great. Much better production job, like Jurgen said. This one sounds absolutely fine. The band focuses in a little bit more on the power metal side of things. They're drifting a little bit further away from the speedier and thrashier side of things from an album or 2 back. It's still there in the mix, but they're changing those percentages. If Reign of Fear was only, was 70% speed and 30% thrash, this one's, dial those 2 down and just kind of dial up the traditional, heavy metal sound a lot more. And it works absolutely well. PV still has plenty of range in his vocals at this point. So yeah, he can still do the high stuff just fine. A lot of good tracks. Like Jurgen said, it's a long set of tracks, but they're pretty short. A couple of standouts for me. Pilgrim's Path is one I really like. And once again, the album closer, Between the Lines, is one that I really like on here too. Another little trivia fact, this would be the last appearance of the Chains logo on a Rage studio album. After this, they'll be kind of retiring that particular logo for another one. But yeah, it's a really good sort of breakout for the new lineup. They sound kind of refreshed. They sound very confident. Feels like they've found a lineup and a direction and a sound for this new group that they want to pursue. And it works really good. So yeah, very strong album in their catalog.
I think they found themselves on a songwriting perspective. They're they hit a few bumps in the road maybe on the last album, and here I think they're starting to they're getting honed in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, pick it up and run with it, Marty. Go right ahead.
Well, the first thing, the overall production, that's Jurgen. That's not me.
Yeah.
I hit the wrong button. There we go. Production, it's noticeably sharper than Execution Guaranteed. Definite improvement. Everything's more together. And Chris is by far a better, more technical drummer than George, or however you say it. I'm sorry. I'm English, American. And his performance adds a welcome level of excitement that wasn't there on the previous material, I don't think. Manny as well. He's a fantastic guitar player.
Yeah.
His riffs are intricate and they hit hard, yet they remain very memorable, which is something that they really expand upon as they move into the future here. PV's getting his vocals dialed in really well on here, and his bass work. You're really starting to hear that PV's a badass on bass as well. He does a lot to reinforce and complement what Manny's doing. He's filling in that bottom end. He's doing what he's supposed to do, but he also lays down some very tasty licks on occasion, which again, that gets more so as we move into the catalog. And unlike the last album in particular, these tracks, they might be shorter, but there's a seamless flow in the structure of the songs. The parts, the way they flow together, it feels more comfortable. They're really getting it figured out. I don't know if Manny just had more of a understanding of theory. I don't know, but it didn't sound like riff, sandwiching some parts together. And I will say, the thing that really is predominant here, or really starting to take shape, is you look at a song like "Don't Fear the Winter." What is that song? That is one of the songs that I think is a bigger song for them in the early years, and it's the chorus, that sing-along chorus. And for me, and from a German metal standpoint, some people would disagree with me here, but I see the chorus as like the fingerprint of a song when it comes to metal like this. When you start getting to more traditional metal, you can almost look out and see a festival crowd singing along with your chorus. That's kind of a German thing. You know what I mean? The German metal thing. And I think they're really starting to get that figured out here. And again, this is something they get really, really fucking good at as they move on. But Wasteland, it's a fantastic opener. It's very typical, but soaring chorus. Very interesting how they did that. Don't Fear the Winter, as I mentioned. God, the hook and chorus, it's unshakable. You listen to that song once, I'm singing it all day. That's just the way it is. Pilgrim's Path, another favorite, as is Perfect Man. And I'm with Alan. Between the Lines, it's a great closer to the album. But Manny's guitar work on here is wild and exciting. I really like what he's doing. It charges this music. It gives it an extra goose, if that makes sense. The album isn't perfect yet, but it's kind of remains a favorite, and I think it's a fan favorite as well for sure. But that brings us into Secrets in a Weird World, 1989 Noise Records. Jurgen.
So yeah, on what the hell? On Perfect Man, they started to tour, at least in Europe, and play festivals. The first big festival they played was in Poland, the Metal Mania show in 1988 it was, yeah. So you would think they released an album every year since 1985. You think they might take a break, but no, already in 1989, they released Secrets in a Weird World. And this was a big step forward for them, in my opinion. First of all, we're going to hear about that later on. They first used an opus number 32, number 3, something like that, as an intro. So you've got the symphonic aspect on here. They slowed down a little bit. They concentrated on writing even more catchy songs. They've got another hit on here, Invisible Horizon. They released a maxi single and a video clip for it, and it was all over German TV back in '89. So yeah, not a bad track. Without a Trace, the last song, is one of my favorites on here. Light into the Darkness. Like I said, not a bad track on here, and you could find this album in every dollar bin, as you would call it, everywhere in Germany. It dried out only the last 10 years, something like that. Yes, Simon mentions the cover. That was not the band's decision. It was Walterbach.
Yep.
So they fixed that with the reissue of the
Why
album.
did Walterbach say no to that cover? That cover rules. It's cool.
I think he didn't want to pay the artist for it.
Probably, exactly right.
No, seriously, I think he was avoiding paying artist fees.
And this one, maybe money had to do something with that, because they should have brought out that one as gatefold.
Yeah.
So yeah, another money issue.
Mhm.
So yeah, they fixed it. That is the cover that was intended for the album.
And it suits the album much better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
So decades later, the error was fixed. Deadly error. Remember Execution Guaranteed, the song?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably why you could find this shitty cover in every dollar bin. So yeah, pretty widespread album. They got themselves a good name with that one. So yeah,
All right.
there you go.
Alan.
Yeah, I'd agree with Jurgen on all points here. This one, the band, again, they're sounding very confident. There's a good range of styles expressed across the album. The album overall has a little bit of kind of, not a silly vibe, but a happy vibe. These songs sound like the band is having a good time. There's maybe just a pinch of that kind of, happy Halloween, infectious, happy German power metal thing creeping in here. Not in a cheesy way whatsoever. They're not going full on pumpkins or anything like that. But yeah, it's got that kind of spirit infused in a lot of the songs. there are some kind of goofy ideas here and there, like "Talk to Grandpa," which is a song about having a séance to talk to their dead grandpa to find out where he's hidden all of his money because they want their inheritance. Goofy stuff. But yeah, then you have the big closing track, which is in 3 parts, and it's like one part's on Atlantis, one part's on the Bermuda Triangle, and the third part's on UFOs, I think. So getting different influences there. The single track that Jurgen mentioned, Invisible Horizons, it's a standout on the album. Makes sense. They
great song. It really is a great song.
Yep. So once again, this new lineup is really starting to fire on all cylinders here. It's a good album throughout. Works well. I think it's one of the better known albums in the Rage catalog, and I think that's for a reason. It's some very strong material. Last point I'll make here, one thing that impresses me about this era of Rage is the fact that they're working essentially as a 3-piece. And that is a configuration that personally I'm always a little skeptical of in metal bands. It is not easy to really excel with only 3 people.
Corner did it.
Some bands do. No, there are plenty of exceptions to that rule. I'm just like, if I see a new band, you're like, hey, check out this new band. And I look and I see there's only 3 people where the guitarist or the bassist, or in some cases the drummers, having to double up on vocals. My initial reaction is going to be like, okay, let's see if they can pull this off. Are they going to have a full enough sound, with only one guitarist and somebody having to kind of split their attention between vocals and doing something else? It doesn't always work out well, but for Rage, absolutely, there's no issue here whatsoever. So the fact that they sound this good and are doing it with only 3 people in the band, it just kind of more kudos for pulling it off without needing a 4th person. So yeah, Secrets in a Weird World, excellent album, very strong. Marty?
Short rant from my side.
Yep.
Sure.
A 3-piece is better than a one-man band who uses a drum computer.
I would not argue that point.
And on the tour for that album, they started to use a keyboard player in the band.
Okay.
Huh. Interesting.
But we're going to talk about that in a minute.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, this was, other than hearing Before the Storm on the Doomsday News comp, this Secrets in the Weird World was the first Rage that ever entered my local Camelot music. I bought the tape. I still own the tape. It's screwed. For some reason, over the years, it just kind of is screwed up. I don't know how or why, but got a CD not too long ago. Actual noise pressing, which I was shocked about, thrilled with. But when I first bought this, I don't know what I was expecting. I knew that they were a different sounding band from the Doomsday News. Their presence in the Doomsday News comp was different from the rest of the bands. I didn't know what to expect, and hearing this for the first time, I had a hard time connecting with this record. The structures were more advanced, more complicated, very obtuse guitar playing on here. But thankfully, back in the day, I bought very few things every month because I was a kid. I had no real worthy income other than maybe some allowance and shit, but I would listen to it over and over and over and over again. And finally I got past that hurdle, and it was due to songs like Invisible Horizons. What an absolute great song. A very atypical but passionate chorus. It's just a great song. And what was the other one? Time Waits for No One. Another great fucking song. I mean, that they fire off the album. Rage is always good at putting their best foot forward when it comes to this stuff. And I will say, after all these years and processing the record the last few weeks, I think side A of this album is stronger than side B, though again, there's nothing on here that sounds like a misstep for me. I just think that they put their best songs on the first side and the good songs are on side B, and it's, again, they're getting this what they are figured out, and you can see a big jump in their songwriting evolution. And like Jurgen said, they're getting better and better tools in their work and their carry on, and it shows that these albums are growing quickly in between. So, yep, it's a great record, and it's held up really well. And again, it's one that I think most people really need to spend some time with to get. I did anyway, and still to this day, I like putting it on, but it doesn't have the immediate payoffs like some of their later albums do.
I'd agree with that, Marty. It took me a few spins to have this album click too. Like the first couple times I played it, I was like, okay, there's something going on here. But yeah, it did take a few spins to fully click. I don't know if I would agree about the best songs being on side A though. I think side B is actually feels a little more focused. Maybe like side A's got some of the tracks where they try a few different things, and side B it feels like they maybe dial in a little tighter. So that may not be better or worse, but it's worth pointing out.
Right on. And that brings us to 1990s Reflections of a Shadow on Noise Records. They're still cranking them out for Walterbach. That long contract they signed with every ounce of their blood and no say in their anyway, go ahead. Jurgen.
No saying their band name, their cover art.
Nothing. Yeah. Was he in the studio showing them what to play too? Come on.
I guess they're lucky they actually put the Rage music on the album and didn't replace it with another, Gravedigger set of songs.
Right.
Are you sure that Walterbach didn't write some of the songs?
Yeah.
Now that you mention it.
So yeah, again, 1 year later, going on with an album every fucking year. 1990s Reflections of a Shadow. First of all, the cover artwork is terrible.
It sucks. It's bad.
It's got a huge Rage logo on it. And a skull. Yeah. And the album title. On that one, like I said, on the tour for the predecessor, they started to use keyboards live to widen the sound a little bit, I guess. On that one, they experimented with keyboards in the songs. And yes, that sounds like an experiment. Peavy tried a little bit of the lower register on the vocals, and the songwriting on that is not very focused, in my opinion. This is one of the albums that has one of the early albums that doesn't have any hit on it. Probably the opening track, That's Human Bondage, is the most memorable on the album. I don't know. I don't dislike the album. I never did. I bought that when it came out, but at first I was a little disappointed. And the production on here is weaker than the last two albums. So maybe the use of synthesizers or keyboards just mellowed it down, something like that. Yeah, a little bit more commercial, right? Still a three-piece working with a keyboarder who doesn't appear as a band member.
Claude Schnell effect.
Yeah.
Hide him behind the curtain.
So yeah, Reflections of a Shadow. You're gonna see where this lands in my favorites or least favorites. Yeah.
Me too. Yep, me too. All right, Alan, Reflections of a Shadow.
Yeah, this is the first instance of a Rage album with a giant logo on the cover, as Jurgen pointed out, and a round object in the center of the cover. You're going to see that a few times over the next couple of hours. There's a certain funny sameness to some of their covers. This one doesn't quite hit the mark for me either. It is my least favorite of the Mammy era albums that we're in. As folks said, this one, there's less thrash, there's less speed. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying it's more commercial, but it definitely has, a little bit more of a safer, plainer sound. It's, losing those more aggressive elements by this point. And it's okay, but not a lot of things really stand out. There's still some really good, guitar work throughout the album. but the songs just don't they really feel as memorable overall. It's an album you just look at it and you kind of get the sense like this one's probably not going to quite get the thumbs up. The one song that did stand out for me a little bit, at least the one I included in my notes that I liked was Saddle the Wind.
That's a good song.
I thought that one was pretty good. Yeah, if I was picking a song off this album to put on like a Rage playlist, I think I'd pick Saddle the Wind. But yeah, this one feels like maybe the year in, year out workload had caught up with them just a little bit, and they needed a moment to kind of reboot, refresh themselves, and kind of put out a relatively average album at this point. So yeah, not a highlight. It's not a crapper. It's not like they all of a sudden were trying to emulate Biohazard or something. It's just not their strongest outing. So yeah, a bit lower for me too. Like I said, definitely my least favorite of these 5 albums that feature Mammy on guitar. Marty, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah. The first thing you notice right away is that the lead-off track, that Human Bondage, this is the first proper opening track, I guess I should say. The snare rings out like a gunshot, which is very distracting and loud. And PB's really kind of pushing it in the higher end of his register. He sounds a bit out of range.
He does lose that over time. And you can start to see it fading as you get deeper in the 90s.
Yeah, but he seems very uncomfortable for him the way he's singing it, but I'm not a fan of this track. And the funny thing is the immediate track after it, True Face in Everyone, it finds the snare sound thankfully normalizing. Why? Like, oh, this is our first song, we have to have a real aggressive snare here. I don't understand why you would have a different drum sound throughout the album. It's just always kind of bizarre for me, but I like the guitar, the chorus on that and the guitar work surrounding it on True Face and Everyone. But the verse lines leading up to the chorus is kind of okay. Flowers That Fade in My Hand, well-written song, colorful riff work, some cleaner guitar lines for color in the synth to give this one a bit of maturity, I guess you could call it. Good flow, good song. Title track is within the same tempo. There's a bit of a commercial interference happening here. It's kind of creeping into the song a bit. But yeah, Can't Get Out, Waiting for the Moon, Saddle the Wind. And this one is one of the quicker songs on the album, with the best chorus on the album too. Come on, that's a good one. Faith has some ballad aspirations with a chorus that feels like a chorus off of Judas Priest Turbo. I thought anyway. It was kind of, I'm like, where have I heard this before? And I'm like, oh, it's on Turbo somewhere. I don't know. The album largely lives all within the same tempo. So there isn't, it feels kind of interchangeable. You know what I mean? Nothing that stands out. And to be honest, this album rarely gets played. So it was interesting putting it on after not listening to it in a very long time. And my thoughts on it kind of remain the same. It's just, we'll get to where it may live or may not live at the end of this thing. But yep. So that brings us to, 1992, Trapped. Doesn't that looks like a proper Noise Records release, doesn't it? You got some killer artwork.
Andreas Marschall.
Yep. It looks right. And I have to put it right out here. Jurgen a couple years ago, did a dive on his own channel talking about Rage, and was singing the praises of this record. And I'm sitting there going, after not hearing anything past Secrets in a Weird World, I'm like, it can't be that good. Well, you know what? As soon as I got done watching Jurgen talk about Rage, I went and put this record on, and well, you'll hear what I had to say about it very shortly. But Jurgen, thank you for turning me on to such a massive banger of an album. Go ahead.
No problem. But we're missing 1 year in between. So that would be the first year they didn't release anything in 1991. Well, that's not true. They released the Extended Power EP.
That is on my wish list. I'm going to get that one of these days.
Cool.
Those were a couple of leftovers from the last 2 albums they did, and They did a remake of an old Avenger song. The Avenger song is called Battlefield. On that one, they changed the lyrics because German guys are thirsty guys, and now this song is called Bottlefield. So yeah,
Nice.
you can't have a year without a Rage release. So 1991 saw that one.
Yep.
And actually, the cover is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
That's the emoji I tried to put on the Discord server today, everybody, and it was a fail. It didn't turn out very well.
So now we are in 1992. This album sums up everything they did until then. First couple of albums, including the Avenger stuff, and they nailed it on that one. First of all, the cover artwork is fantastic.
Mhm.
I could read you the whole track list. Yeah, I can. Baby, I'm Your Nightmare. Shame. Let's start from the beginning. Shame on You is a fantastic opener for the album.
Mm-hmm.
Solitary Man is a hit.
Oh, yeah.
Still playing that night, that live. Enough is Enough is a little bit slower, but it's still got a good pace and very, very memorable chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Medicine Questions, Baby, I'm Your Nightmare. Even I like cover songs, but I don't like cover songs on albums. But Fast as a Shark, yeah, it belongs right here. So yeah, the double LP version comes with a lot of bonus shit as well. So yeah, so far this was by far their magnum opus, I would say. Production on that is perfect. Cover artwork is perfect. Songwriting is perfect. PV even getting a little bit lower with his vocals, and it sounds, yeah, it fits the music. So yeah, still aggressive enough for calling it. Would you call that still a speedy thrash metal album? Yeah, I would say so.
It's more modern. There's more chug in the guitar tone. I think it's a step towards a more modern production, a more modern way of presenting German metal. You know. What do you think? What year is this? It came out in 92.
92.
I'm thinking when is Pantera enter the discussion?
Pantera's on the scene by now. Yeah, oh yeah.
So I mean, there's a little bit of that bleed over here, but
I think this you could blame the guitar sound a little bit more on the Black Album.
yeah. All right, Alan, your thoughts on Trapped?
Yeah, Trapped is one I've known for a long time. It's, a very strong album. And it's another one that is a good example, like we were just discussing. It just kind of, has a slight blend of different styles. It's not pure power metal in the vein of Running Wild or Halloween or Gamma Ray. It's not a hard rock metal album like, Sinner was doing. It's not thrash. It's not out and out speed. It's doing a little bit of all those things. I think Jurgen put it well when he said this kind of shows a little bit of everything they've done up to this point. It's their best cover art to date. Great image from Andreas.
They have had some cool covers over the years. I mean, there's some
They
good
have,
ones.
yeah. They have some good covers here and there. They have some clunkers, but yeah, I think this is my favorite, easily up to this point at least. And yeah, just a great set of songs. Personal favorite is Enough is Enough. That's got a chorus that will just stick in your brain for a week if you hear the song. If I'm going to nitpick this album, I feel at 13 tracks and over 58 minutes, it is a tad long. But you're also getting mid-90s.
Incorrect, sir.
No, not incorrect. This album would have a little more impact if you shaved, and maybe even just one song off of it is all.
Maybe just didn't need to be on there. It didn't
maybe
need
just
to,
leaving the again. And Jurgen's right; it's a good version of Fast as a Shark. I don't mind it on there, but the fact that it's a full hour listen keeps me from playing this album, back to back to back to back. It's like I play it, it's just like okay. I'm not going to spend a full hour on this album right away. I'll circle back to it tomorrow or something. So I wish it was just a hair shorter. But yeah, no, that said, to your point, Marty, I can't pick out a song that immediately needs to be culled. either. The cover is kind of the obvious one to point at, but it fits the album fine. So, and again, it's a nitpick. It's a very good album. I suspect we all might be mentioning it towards the end of the show. And if for folks who have joined later, we're not ranking the albums tonight, but at the end we are going to mention our top 5 and our bottom 5. And I suspect this one might get a couple of mentions in the top 5, but you'll have to wait an hour or two to find out for sure. So yeah, very, very good album, start to finish. I agree with Jurgen. It's kind of, their masterwork, at least up to this point in the catalog. So Marty, I have a feeling you want to gush about this one a bit more, so please do.
Yeah, this is the culmination of all their work and refining their songwriting and figuring out what they are. It all kind of comes to call on this record. From the production to all the songs, there's no missteps here in my opinion. And Manny's Middle Eastern melodic flair really kind of stands out and kind of rises to the surface on here. He's writing some tricky guitar lines that have a neat little lick to them that really kind of stand out. But really, the songwriting on here is flawless. PB's voice is dialed in. It's a fantastic fucking record. And the songwriting, this is kind of, I think I agree with Jurgen here. It's their masterwork. And it's really kind of the template for them moving forward, other than some experimental things that they do here and there. This, for me, is the formula that works. This, to me, there's no more of these weird sort of structures. This is very sing-along. And you're right. Shame on You. What a great opener. Solitary Man. Fucking classic song. Enough is Enough. Medicine. And yes, Baby, I'm Your Nightmare. You're 11 tracks in, and they drop that weird, Baby, I'm Your Nightmare. It's just so damn catchy. It's like a different flow from the rest of the album, and they save that little nugget towards the end to keep you tied in before they jump into the Accept cover. But, man, this is one that I listen to. When I put it on, I'm listening to it probably all day. It's just the way it is. So, yep, no foreshadowing there where that's going to live on my list, but yeah, where are we at next? And this is another one. 1993.
So Kevin's got a question on the shirt.
Yes, he did.
Bloodlust is the band. This is the Terminal Velocity shirt for their first EP. This is the US speed metal band from the early 80s.
Cool cover, or it's a cool image.
Yeah. There was a guy in that band who later became the singer in Abattoir on Abattoir's first album. So Steve Gaines is his name, if you want to know that. So yeah, it's the US speed metal band. All right, 1992. If the album with a playing time of around an hour was not enough, they also released the Beyond the Wall EP that's got some leftovers and Japanese bonus tracks released for the German market. I would love to get that on vinyl. Yeah. 1992, another EP.
My kid had that. Came in the box set.
Yeah, it came in the box set. You're right.
Yep.
It also has the Extended Power EP on it.
Mm.
So, next studio album, 1993. The Missing Link. And this just continues where they left off with Trapped. I don't know. The first 3 songs, the first 4 songs, they start with Firestorm, a fantastic opener for the album.
Great song, man.
Yeah.
Catchy as hell. Nevermore's killer.
Nevermore, Refuge. Mm-hmm. The Pit and the Pendulum is a slower one, but very, very catchy. Certain Days on the second side, and the title track, The Missing Link. So another fantastic album in their catalog. And we have to say all the productions they did since Execution Guaranteed, production work on the albums is always great.
Top notch. They get it really where it needs to be.
This one saw re-release. By the way, those vinyl re-releases with the bonus tracks, it's Rage's own label, and they had a lawyer who got back the rights to the songs and the albums from Noise Records, which is not an easy task. A lot of bands are still struggling to do that.
Or cheap, I'm sure.
Yeah, because Noise copyrights were sold to Sony and whatever. And the lawyer that got back the rights for Rage to re-release the old albums on their own, he lives right around the corner, and he was the ex-guitar player of Paradox.
Oh, right on.
Cool.
Yeah, he's a music lawyer.
I gotta say, once again, Jurgen, after your video, and I listened to part of Trapped and heard how amazing it was, and you're praising Missing Link as well. I got on eBay, and these two CDs, these noise pressings, I got on eBay in a lot for like $22. I couldn't believe it. And I just thought they were reissues, and I got them like, oh shit, these are original noise presses. Cool. Again, thank you for that. Alan, Missing Link.
Another album with a big round thing right in the middle of it. I'm keeping score on that tonight.
Yep.
The logo's not huge, but a big circle right there in the middle of the artwork. Yeah, it's a good album. It's a worthy follow-up to Trapped. I've never played this one nearly as much as Trapped for whatever reason. It's pretty comparable overall, though. We are at the end of an era here. This is the fifth and last one with this kind of classic three-man lineup. So we're going to kind of have a little bit of a change when we get to the next album. But yeah, I don't have much to add on this one other than that. Yeah, it's another very strong album. Again, we're kind of right here, for what a lot of folks would be considered the golden era of Rage. They're on a really good run of albums at this point. So, Marty, I'll keep it short so you can give you some extra time for this one if you want it.
Trapped Part 2, 100%. And they've found this quality in songwriting and sound and everything, and they've locked it down. I mean, Rage at this point has found their sound, and it's pure and it's their own. it's really cool. And yep, the songs have an effective flow, and there's a sing-along chorus formula that keep the European festival crowds on their toes for sure. Firestorm, as Jurgen mentioned, is an absolute great lead-off track. It sets the tone for the album, as is Nevermore, Refuge from the Underworld. Certain Days, nearly all the tracks possess an energy and excitement thanks to Manny's playful shred work, basically. And of course, PB's keen knack for decorating these songs with his interesting lyrics and great vocals. I mean, the 1-2 punch, really, 1-2, bam. These are two very focused and very effective records for sure. But yeah, that brings us to 1995. What's next, Jurgen?
Yeah,
a shift in the record label. The record label changes. That's a big deal.
That's switching too. Yep.
But right before that, so Rage, that was the Missing Link was the first time I saw them live. They played the Melodic Metal Strikes Back tour.
Did you get hungry at the show and have to eat corner your ticket to sober up a little bit?
That's what they did.
Oh, right on.
Instead of removing the stripe, they just ripped it.
Oh, that's okay.
So it's Gamma Ray, Rage, Conception, and a German band called Helicon. And I just watched the price. It was still Deutschmark prices. So if you bought the ticket in advance, back then that would have been around $6 for all these bands. So yeah, on that tour they made a home video, VHS back then, but I didn't pull my VHS. So the video link, it's called, a couple of interviews on there. Great to watch.
That tour was with Insanity and Genius era Gamma Ray, right?
Mm-hmm, right, yeah. The last tour with
Ralph.
Live Shapers, yeah.
Yep.
So a step to 1995 would be a little bit too much. So we need a 1994 release. And it was 10 years of Rage. Alan, did I mention they count the Avenger years?
Yes, they actually count this as one of their studio full lengths also, which got to call foul on that.
They count that as a studio album as well, for a reason, because most of the songs we never heard before. These were demo tracks written for different periods for the band and recorded in one piece. So, and it's got a little medley at the end. The Blow in a Row, it's called. The Blow in a... Groupies? No, yeah. So 1994's release, 10 Years of Rage. Although it was a lie. So in 1995, they changed the record company. And again, the old lineup, the three-piece with Money and Chris, fell apart. No. Chris was still in the band. So Money stepped out of the band and they got themselves two new guitar players. One of them was Money's little brother, and one of them was a guy called Sven Fischer, and he played in a speed metal band called Purakanda before that.
Oh, you mean Chris's little brother, not Manny's?
Yeah, Chris's little brother. Yeah, right. So again, a round thing in the middle. This album is called Black in Mind, and this one saw a shift in the band. So they were expanding their toolbox, so to say. More on the mid-tempo side, this album, a pretty long album. I think the original album was over 66 minutes.
It's 68 minutes and change. Yeah,
68. Yeah, they had the CDs. CD was capable of 68 minutes, so why not?
Yep.
That is another one. I had to get used when this one came out. I had to get used a little bit to that. We talked about the sound on the other albums, the crunchy sound, and on that one they dialed down the speed a little bit. So you can hear a lot of Metallica influences here. I would call them Metallica influences. But it's got a lot of hits on here. Black in Mind, the opening song, the title track. The Crawling Chaos, Alive But Dead. They still play that one live. In a Nameless Time, The Price of War. It's a great album. It's a long one, and it's a little bit different than all the shit they released before, but it's a great album. So, yeah. Black in Mind, 95.
All right. Alan.
Yeah, so this was around the time where what's his name? Kopech had broke away from Noise, started Gun Records, and a lot of the Noise talent was more than happy to kind of shift over to that label.
Yes,
Rage was certainly not the only band that had issues, with the management at Noise over the years. So on paper, it seemed like a good deal for everybody. A lot of bands could shift to this new label. Gun could start off with kind of a high-profile roster. In hindsight, the move didn't really work out all that great for some bands. For a lot of bands, it felt like this is kind of the end of their golden period. And on top of this, Rage has a new lineup to work with. With this album, Black in Mind, and again, to be clear, this is one I'm not super familiar with. I've checked it out several times over the past 6 months, but I don't have 20, 30 years of history with it at all. Jurgen's exactly right. It does mark a shift for the band. They're going more mid-paced. It's got kind of a meatier sound. Here you do start to hear, some of those mid-90s conventions creeping into their sound more. They are not turning into Biohazard or anything like that.
Or Pantera.
They're borrowing a few ideas from those bands. Some of it may be Metallica. There's at least one or two riffs. I think it's on Until I Die. That you can tell they were familiar with Dimebag's repertoire by the time they wrote that riff. There's pinches of it there. Interestingly, the album has a strong kind of Lovecraft concept on a lot of the tracks. I don't think it's a concept album, but you've got Shadow Out of Time. You've got the Crawling Chaos. You don't often associate Lovecraft with bands that operate in kind of traditional metal territory or power metal territory. That's something we usually think of more for death metal or funeral doom or something. But yeah, here's a German metal band that's definitely not afraid to break out some of the old H.P. Lovecraft material for inspiration, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, there's some hit or miss going on with this style shift. The new lineup certainly isn't bad. I'm just not real keen on this change towards a little bit more of a groovier, chunkier approach to things. For every song that does work pretty well, and there are some I like. Shadow Out of Time is one I think is really good. But then you get to something like what is it? In a Nameless Time. Again, it's got that kind of blocky, chunkier. It's not a full on chugga approach, but it's getting there, and so it just doesn't quite sit right with me. This is one of those kind of shifts, with Rage. It's like, not quite what I would be hoping for. Maybe it would grow on me over time. It is not a horrible record, but I just don't like the change in direction that the band is going through here with a new lineup, a new label, the music scene changing a lot around heavy music here in the mid-90s at this point. So yeah, this one, not a personal high-ranking album, not a totally, bottom barrel ranking kind of either. And, who's this? Dave. Thanks you so much, Dave. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Dave.
that. Yep. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying the show. So yeah, not a personal favorite here. They're not doing anything terrible. What they're doing, I just don't particularly enjoy compared to what they've done before. So Marty, interested to hear your take on this one.
Well, I think right out of the gate, there's a thicker sound because you got two guitars here, but I think Manny's colorful guitar work is kind of missed a little bit. But it seems like PV and crew are firmly cemented into the supreme formula for Rage moving forward. It focuses more on powerful tracks, and it has become the essence of the band, essentially. Full modern production. You're not wrong there, Alan. It's very, very modern sounding. It's a good collection of songs, but we're entering into an era here where long Rage albums are kind of becoming a thing. I mean, overly long. And it's like PV's got so much music in him that he just kind of wants to share it. This one's over an hour long, as you mentioned. Probably 3 songs too long, but you'll be hearing us proclaiming this for probably the rest of the evening. But Black in Mind, The Crawling Chaos, Sent by the Devil, A Spider's Web. There really isn't a bad track on here. 100% consistent. There's just too much of it on here. Maybe an EP would have been cool here and there, but I really like the record. It's catchy as hell. I just think this is Rage really, again, the 2 new guitarists, granted, one of them is family. You got Manny's brother here. It actually looks a lot like him in the picture. It looks a lot like Manny.
Chris's brother.
Or Chris's brother, I'm sorry. I did the same thing Jurgen did.
It's my turn next time.
Yeah. They understand the mission statement. They understand the assignment. They know they're not going in there to reinvent a band that is dialed in. I mean, they've been through their explorative find ourselves phase on those early albums, and they've got something that's working really well. And I think it's a good record. It's just a couple songs too long for me. But that brings us to 1996, and I know Jurgen's going to show some stuff, but we're just going to kind of say real quick. In 1996, Rage released a demo, 2 full-length albums, and an EP, which is freaking insane. It's absolutely insane. Jurgen.
So the next big step they did is try and experiment with the Lingua Mortis Orchestra. So we're not going to talk about that. This is are just orchestral versions of older songs and a huge medley in the middle that takes 16 minutes with Don't Fear the Winter, Firestorm, shit like that, all crammed together.
Yeah. It is an important one to mention here. I'm glad you're showing it, Jurgen, because this is something the band will utilize, from time to time moving forward. This wasn't just a one-off kind of like, oh, let's do a fun symphony record and then forget all about it. That's going to creep into a lot of albums down the line. So even though it's not really a proper full-length studio album, it's definitely an important point in their history that it's the first time they go in that direction, but it's not the last.
Yeah, just added another huge toy to the to the toolbox. Maybe like it's the jackhammer in the toolbox, something like that. So yeah, not going to talk about that. In 1996, they also released their next studio album called End of All Days. This one goes a little bit back. It has some quicker songs on it. You have the soundchaser on the cover in a bigger form, not somewhere in the middle somewhere. And this one has one of their greatest hits. Everyone in Germany, everyone in Europe loves that fucking Higher Than the Sky song.
Yep.
I don't think it's the best song on the album because it gets on my nerves. I've seen Rage so many times.
And they go on with the crowd for like an hour, all singing along with it. I can see that, but it's a good song.
But I witnessed some funny things. We played with Rage a couple of times. And a friend of mine, he's always running around with his ukulele. And when Rage came off stage, he was standing right next to PV and singing his own song to him. That was Higher Than the Sky. Yeah, again, it's a long album. It's got great songs on it. But at that time, it starts to blend all together a little bit for me. So that is when I didn't ignore the band, but that was at the time in 96 when I stepped aside a little bit. So we are almost halfway through the discography now, and I'm gonna get myself a beer and start drinking now.
I just want to say real quick, I want to show a picture that just came in. There's a happening in Florida right now. We got some heavy metallurgy family hanging out together in a bar down in Florida. So we've got
nice.
Dreadful Rick and Jim from the metal, the album club hanging out, having some beers. I think they're going record shopping too. So
very cool.
Jealous. I wish we were there all drinking with them.
That would be cool.
All right, Alan.
All right. Yeah, actually, I would echo Jurgen's sentiments on this album a lot. If I had been following Rage through the 90s, I think this would have been the point I probably would have stepped aside to. It's not a bad album, but there's just not a lot here that interests me. And it's kind of a theme for this four-man era. Yeah, this is kind of the Mark III era of the band. Four-man lineup. They're not making bad albums, but it is starting to blend together. There's just not a ton that stands out on this album as superior, and it can kind of bleed into the other stuff they're doing here. So yeah, this mid to late 90s era, not the strongest in my opinion. It's not the stuff I gravitate to nearly as much as the Manny era. The Manny era was kind of, maybe if you want to consider that the golden age, it feels like here they've come down to earth a good bit. Not making bad albums, they're not a total sellout, and that really is noteworthy. I'm not just saying that to try to come up with something positive. Think about how many German metal bands struggled in the 90s. Destruction, Creator, Halloween. A lot of those bands that started out in the 80s had a real tough go of it. They had a lot of identity issues moving through the 90s. Rage isn't necessarily knocking it out of the park right now, but they aren't having the same kind of identity crisis that a lot of their peers did. They're not turning out albums like, the least successful Human Cannonball that have to be kind of scrubbed from their existence a decade later. Rage is soldiering on and still doing their thing. They're just not doing it at the same exact high level that they were in the previous version of the band. So this one, to me, it's a very average album. Not bad, not great, but if I had been keeping up with the band, I do feel this would have been the album where I've been like, okay, maybe I need to take a break from Rage, because at this point, the albums are starting to feel a bit samey. So, Marty, what do you think about this one?
Screw you guys. This album rules.
That's cool. Glad
Again, I think it's a bit long.
Oh, yes.
But at this point, this is a pure Rage record. It's perfectly crafted. You got Higher in the Sky. It's a classic. Watching it live in an hour-long crowd interaction, yeah, it's a bit much. But Under Control rips, End of All Days, and Visions rule. Let the Night Begin, Frozen Fire. I mean, you've got some great songs here spread throughout, linked together by good songs. They're not top-tier songs, but they're good songs. Deep in the Blackest Hole is decent, but a step down from the others on the album. But again, still a good song. It's over an hour long. There's a lot going on here, but I still consider this upper tier Rage. I think I really, really, I really like this era. It feels uncult to say that. I should be like, oh, only the Avenger and the speed metal records. The rest sucks. Well, yeah. I'm the guy that wants to be drunk in the festival crowd singing Higher in the Sky and losing my voice. That's where I'm at.
No, this mid and late 90s era definitely has its fans. If you dig around in reviews and stuff, there are people that feel like the band was, still, doing great stuff all the way to the end of the 90s. So, no, you're not alone in that opinion.
All right. Jurgen, that brings us to, what year are we at here? 1998.
That was the first time they took a break for 2 years. The first time since 1984 or 85, when their first Avenger album came out. That was probably because they did a lot of gigs with the Lingua Mortis Orchestra, and they did a Rage tour and did a lot of festivals. So, yeah.
Schlenkerla.
Yes.
See?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Perfect. So, all right.
A ham sandwich, ground up ham sandwich that you can get drunk off of, everyone.
Yeah, the sun's coming up here slowly, so this is my breakfast.
Your breakfast. Yeah, I like it.
Ham and eggs.
Hopefully they left the eggs out. That'd be gross.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we go to a studio album number 13.
Or maybe 10.
Or maybe 10, yes.
Or maybe 11.
I'll be right back.
Giant logo with a round thing in the middle.
Yeah, and on that one, that was the first album. They really tried to combine what they did with the Lingua Mortis Orchestra with their brand of heavy metal, let's say. Yeah, at that point, I would call Rage a heavy metal band.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
It's a long album. I think they did it pretty well. I ignored the album when it came out. That is one of the ones that is pretty new to me. I bought the reissue, and that was the first time I heard it. So I only know the album for 2 years. The first thing when I listened through the album is, why did it fucking need Painted Black on here?
Fair question.
First of all, the song is, overplayed. And Rage doing a Stones cover song. They tried a different thing with it, but you scratched that from the track list. It starts with the first real song is From the Cradle to the Grave. And that is still a staple in their live set. And it brought another hit called In Vain, I Won't Go Down. So that is another famous song. I like the album. It's not one of my favorites. The production on this one is good, and it sounds like a real orchestra playing. So it's not all keyboards and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a metal album with classic elements. I would call it that. So yeah, 13 by Rage. Rage's 10th album. Just had to add that.
Yeah, it's weird having the Roman numerals not match up, but regardless.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, so as Jurgen said, the band goes very much in that symphonic orchestral direction on this album. Long story short, it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. They go a little too far in that direction. I think one of the things I've always liked about Rage is that they do balance elements very nicely. We've said it several times tonight. They always incorporate some thrash, some power, some speed, some traditional metal, etc. But this one, it feels like they definitely lose their balance. They want to really lean into the symphonic thing. They're revisiting that lingula mortis idea from a couple of years ago. It's not horrible. It's not a disaster. I don't hate it, but it doesn't work for me. At the end of the day, it just doesn't. You get, a song like what is it? Days of December. Here, Rage starts trying their hand at more ballady type songs, and those don't work for me. I'm okay with ballads in heavy metal. I'll give a band one ballad per album.
Sometimes it's okay to be in love, Alan.
It is. That's what I'm saying right now. But I'm just saying Rage's ballads don't work for me. I'll try not to hammer that point too hard as we go through the albums, but I just don't feel like Rage ever quite. It doesn't feel right having them do these kind of very ballady songs.
Yeah, because there is no term in English for a raging ballad.
So yeah, well, it's not an anti-ballad stance. I just don't think Rage is. I don't think that's Rage's strong suit. Like Jurgen's been saying, they've got a lot of tools in their toolbox. Their ballad tool needs recalibrating. That's not something the band excels at for me. So yeah, this album, I have to take a pass on this one. Not one for me. Again, it's not like jaw-droppingly bad or anything, but listening to it, it's just like, yeah, this is not something I'm interested in hearing Rage do. So, not one for me. Some folks in the chat like this one. Ed's mentioned he likes it a lot. Other folks like Mike have said that, yeah, they feel like this one's maybe pretty average. Marty, where does it fall for you?
Well, you know what? I'm kind of taken aback by how I think it's pretty effective. I mean, this is not. I mean, I don't own this record. I'm going to own it. My son and I, we've got everything except for 5 full lengths here, and this is one of them. But there's nothing on here that I find offensive. I think, Rage at the Symphony. Okay. It could have been all keyboards, like Jurgen said. They actually work actual strings and actual classical instruments in with this, which adds a bit of an organic feel to it. Mixed with the distortion, it works really well. I mean, even if you dislike the unification between strings and metal, I mean, there's no denying the forward-thinking quality in the songwriting. I think it's interesting how the two styles work together here. Yeah, Kiss did it with Kiss Symphony, and S&M, Metallica did it. I mean, it's nothing new. I don't know where that falls in with this timeline with Rage, but it still sounds like Rage, but with a lot more culture added to the mix. From the Cradle to the Grave, it's a great song, as is Sign of Heaven, Turn the Page, over and over. It really strikes me as another well-composed and adventurous Rage album. And I think I heard when I was going to the bathroom, Jurgen say the Rolling Stones cover. Listening to it's pointless, and listening to it, they did an interesting job on it, but that song is so iconic. Everybody knows that song. No matter what you do to change that song up, it's still going to be that Rolling Stones song. It was unnecessary, but I don't know. I think this is an adventurous record, and this is a style that PV and crew keep going back to on occasion.
Yep.
And they really kind of, I think they're walking a line here that works. It works surprisingly well. I went into this expecting to not like it as much as I did. But I just think the quality of the songwriting is, the foundation is so strong at this point, and they did it right. They brought in real instruments to make the culture kind of feel authentic. You know what I mean? So yeah, you've got Rage, and as you go on, there's some albums coming up here where they mix the symphonic and the classic Rage elements. It sounds like two albums sandwiched together. This here, it actually kind of flows and feels like a forward-thinking, cohesive piece, if you will. But yeah, I dig this one. It's not one I'm reaching for all the time, but I completely respect it. I think PV's songwriting chops it's like he's really sucking in all these ideas and just wanting to expand and not be confined. You know, there's going to be times where they're going to put out just a solid Rage record, metal Rage record, but doing this too, it doesn't feel like a misstep to me. But I do see what you're saying, Alan. It all really, I think, boils down to personal preference, you know?
Yeah, it does. It is kind of funny in a way, because I had almost the opposite reaction. I went in figuring I would like this a lot, and ended up liking it and felt kind of, disappointed. But I do agree with your point. They went about it in a cool way, not just adding 15 layers of synthesizer like something like Stradivarius want to be.
Yeah,
and they are willing to change things up. So again, just an album or two ago, we were comparing them more to borrowing ideas from Pantera and Metallica's Black Album. Now it's like they're almost kind of predating what Avantasia and bands like that would try out pretty soon. So yeah, I like the fact that they were willing to try a more symphonic direction rather than just getting bogged down in some kind of mid to late 90s groove metal album after album after album.
Agreed. Jurgen, we are up to, what year are we at here? We are at 1998.
1999.
99.
99 for their 11th studio album, or 14th if you count the German way.
But before that, I have a short announcement to Mr. Lars Ulrich. You mentioned the S&M album, and Lars Ulrich announced that one as you have never heard stuff like that before. Rage did it 1 or 1.5 years before that.
Yep.
And Deep Purple already did that in the 70s.
That's where Lars got all of his good ideas from, was Deep Purple. Didn't you know that? And yeah.
So yeah, 1999. This is a strange one, a really, really strange one. In 1999, they released the album Ghosts, featuring Lingua Mortis orchestra sounds. So you can hear that these are samples. You can hear that in the album. Lineup-wise, this lineup shows the new 3-piece with the new members in the band. But actually, the album... Yeah, that's Mike Tirana and Victor Smolsky.
Okay, I thought they came in on
They just helped to finish the album. The actual album is played by the last lineup. So
okay, that's what I was confused.
It's listed Sven Swisher and Chris.
Yeah. So yeah, that one is when PV really got disillusioned because the whole band left him. And I think you can hear that in his vocal performance. This is by far PV's weakest vocal performance. The album starts so good with beginning of the end.
No, it's heavy as balls songs.
These two songs rule.
Yeah.
But it peters out after that. So, and we've got a whole lot of stuff left on the album. And I can prove that, but I think that Lingua Mortis orchestral sounds are just samples. It doesn't sound as full and as live as on the 13. So yeah, you're gonna see where this lands in my
I would be interested to sit with you in your room in front of your massive stereo system and listen to that, because listening to it, streaming over, it sounds just heavy and full. I couldn't really discern if it were samples or not, but I bet you could tell pretty effectively on that awesome gear you have.
What bothers me the most is PV's vocals are really, really weak on that album. That is actually one of the. It is actually the only album I would call PV's vocals weak, and they are trying more of that ballady stuff on here as well. And yeah, you're gonna see where that lands.
All right, Alan. Knowing what you thought of 13, I'm sure this one is not much better.
Not much better, but it is a little better.
What?
Not by much, but maybe just a bit. This one's a concept album. I don't really get the concept, but I haven't dug into it that much either. Vocals don't stand out. I feel like maybe though, like with 13, they were like, okay, let's really try this idea full force. And this time it feels like maybe they're reining it in a little bit. Trying to get a handle on it. It didn't strike me that it was samples either, so I didn't pick up on that either. But it does feel like the band is a little more forward and the orchestration's a little pushed back just a bit, and maybe that's part of the sampling issue. Whereas on 13 it felt like the whole point was a orchestra band. This time it's more like band orchestra. And that balance suits me a little better here. But that said, once again they're going in on the ballad here. There's at least a couple of songs that lean that way. Was it Love and Fear Unite? Tomorrow is Yesterday. Combined with the fact that this isn't necessarily PV's finest hour behind the mic, and you've got two instances where he's trying to hold up the boombox and woo the pretty girl down from the bedroom window. Nah, I don't need that on a Rage album. Sorry, I just don't. So, if we were ranking these, I might have this one a few spots higher than 13. Not significantly, though. This is as Jurgen was saying, this kind of wraps up this lineup where we've had 4 albums, with this 4-person lineup. And, it's kind of not wrapping up with some of their strongest material. So, this era of the band, not horrible, not disastrous, but it definitely ranks, relatively low for me as a period during the Rage catalog. Marty, what is your take on Ghosts?
And Jurgen, I think you're 100% right on the samples, because it says right on the cover, featuring Lingua Mortis Orchestra sounds. I never noticed that before. And really, this is a very 90s cover. I don't know. It just doesn't.
A bad 90s.
It's not a great cover, but really for the music, I was surprised. It feels more like a melancholic, somber type of record. Obviously, PV's still in the symphonic mindset, and I don't know. I think he operates well within this metal versus symphony medium. It still sounds like Rage. There's no denying that. You could tell his songwriting vision continues to expand and refine, which is what you want. Beginning of the end, I'm with you, Jurgen. The song is awesome. So heavy, just a heavy song. And samples or not, there's an atmospherically somber vibe with the strings elements behind the riffs. A lot of the songs on the album are like this, but it's a very deep and I think largely overlooked album, which in a way is kind of a shame, because I think it's well done. It's a well done record. It's again, it feels very mature. Is it a fun record? It really isn't a fun record, but I remember when I got this record, I was like, I'm just not feeling it. Listening to it the last couple of weeks, I clicked with it a little bit differently. It's weird. I don't know if it's just because I was in the mood for it. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Yeah. I think it's well done.
Yeah. This one's got some positive reviews. I mean, this era does have a fan base out there. If you look around through some older reviews, there were folks that liked this. So, it's not clear cut. That it's not universally liked or disliked.
Yeah. But here we go. 2001, if Metal Archives is correct. We're up to now. Jurgen, where are we at?
Yeah. So 2001. Welcome to the other side. Again, on the cover, a huge Rage logo and some circle thing, and you've got the soundchaser.
The commemorative soundchaser coin. Collect them all.
See if there's one in there. Nope.
Damn it! You got ripped off.
I took it out of the bottom of the cereal box when Jurgen opened it.
So this one is the real first album with the new lineup. So you've got Victor Smolsky writing a lot of songs on it. He's Zach just wrote it. He's a classical trained musician. You can make that out in the Tribute to Disorder, it's called, and it's split up in 4 parts. They are going to do that on future albums here and there, sometimes better, sometimes worse. This one, it's an okay album, but it's far from their best. Here in the production on that is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But you can hear the stuff that Victor Smolsky is doing, and he has a strange style of guitar playing for a metal band. It's very, very unique, but he does stuff that I don't really like. So this one sounds a little bit more modern, and this one had a real mainstream hit, and I really mean mainstream hit here in Germany.
Huh.
The song Straight to Hell was the soundtrack for a very, very famous movie, the best-selling German movie in that year. So Straight to Hell appeared in the title of the movie translates to The Shoe of the Manitou.
Okay then.
It's a comedy film, so it's like Winnie Two with a gay Winnie Two and shit like that.
The Shoe of the Manitou. That's what should have been the Venom single name. Anyway, go ahead.
And Rage was all over the TV, mainstream TV, big mainstream shows. They played that song live, so it was a big one for the band. Yeah.
All right.
I think we're gonna see where this lands for me.
Alan.
Now all I can have, I've got stuck in my head now. Just I'm hearing Cronus's voice, with the old man issue. That's going to haunt me for a little bit.
Yeah.
So new era for the band with Smolsky on board, and however, it doesn't feel like musically there's necessarily a huge change here. This album still has some similarities to what they've done in the past 2 albums. Some reviews, I meant to mention this with the last album, some reviewers have compared what they're doing around this time to something like what Savatage was doing through the 90s. They're not writing rock operas, but Ghosts was a concept album. Yeah, they're definitely, going for something maybe a little prettier sounding than what they used to do, which, again, and folks, have kind of, joked about it, in the chat, like with, Zach, they're writing ballads, a band named Rage, writing angry, hateful ballads. It's something that mentally just doesn't quite connect here. Like one of these songs, like, has this like really pretty tinkly piano part. Okay. Sure. It's not terrible, but it's not really working for me here. And this, again, I've alluded to this, but the theme is when Rage goes too far in this, more symphonic-y direction, they lose me. And as Marty said, they do it on more than a couple of albums that we haven't gotten to yet. So those are kind of, misses for me a lot of the time. Smolsky is a different kind of guitar player. I like his approach overall. He is different sounding, as Jurgen said, but I think he works really well, and I like his style, although it's different. But I feel like here, and I didn't know about the guys having to kind of come in and help wrap up Ghosts and stuff like that, which Jurgen described earlier. I feel like they haven't really moved on yet. That they're still penning material that the last lineup did, and they need to move on and find something that's going to work for this lineup, which they're going to do, but they just don't do it on this album. So yeah, another album that it's not a disaster, but it's not the Rage album for me. I'll let Marty take over here while I go get something else to drink, because I'm out of both beer and Red Bull.
Uh-oh. Well, for me, I think Victor, there's some similarities between him and Manny's playing. They're both very adventurous players. Victor, I think, is a little bit more, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say crazy. I think Manny, I don't know. I think he's a little bit more playful in his playing, which it works at times. But he's given a lot of, he's got about half the songwriting credits on this album. So Peavy's given him a lot of room to explore, which is cool. And I don't know, this album is very solid. I think it feels like another really solid Rage record. I really like this era of Rage. Tracks like Mirror in Your Eyes, One More Time, they're both great, but there's a mild commercial polish to them, which isn't offensive. It's there, it's noticeable, but it isn't offensive. Let me see here. The symphonic elements are still here, but they're greatly decreased. It seems like each album is getting a little bit less as we're coming out of that. But they're still there for a touch of color in the songwriting. No Lies is a favorite due to the syncopated and tricky riff work. Again, is yet another quality-packed Rage album. I'm not saying it's at the top of the rung, but it lives really comfortably for me in the middle of the pack, and when it's on, I'm enjoying it. I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to turn it off. So, yeah, I'm a little less bothered, I think, than these guys on what they're doing here. But
Marty Worm, Rage apologist.
Yes, 100%. But that brings us to 2002, and it looks like we changed record labels again here.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, this album, Unity goes to Steamhammer.
Yeah. So you compared the guitar players, Manny and Victor, a little bit. I can see the similarities because they are both, as you said, adventurous. But with Manny, he's pulling stuff out of his ass. He's not a trained musician. Yeah, he's got his own style because I assume he's self-taught. That's why he sounds so adventurous. Victor, on the other side, is a trained classical musician. Yeah. So, yeah, you can see the similarities, but yeah, also the differences. So, 2002. That was a huge return for Rage, at least for me. So, when Unity came out and I listened to it on occasion, I think a friend played it to me, I loved it. Mm-hmm. The opening track, All I Want, is all you want from Rage.
Yeah.
The song Down is still played live. It is a hit for them. It is a little bit on the groovy side, but yeah, we over the last 5, 6, 7 years we had to accept that Rage are a little bit on the groovy side. Great song. The production on it is fabulous. You've got backing vocals or backup vocals by Hansi Kirsch, because this record is recorded in their studio, in Blind Guardian's studio.
It says by Charlie Bauerfiend. Isn't that the guy producing the latest Halloween stuff?
He's done a lot of Blind Guardian.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of Gamma Ray. He's done a ton of albums over the years.
Yeah.
And it's weird because his production jobs can be really good, but every now and then he has one that sounds really weird. So he's not a guy that has like a standard canned production style.
Mm-hmm. But I think the production on that one is really cool. You can hear everything, and you don't have much of the orchestral stuff on here. So yeah, first one for Steamhammer in 2002. For me, it's a great comeback for the band.
Alan,
I would agree. Kind of copying off Jurgen's paper a bit tonight, but yeah, again, it's funny, but yeah, whenever a band went to Gun Records, they didn't necessarily turn out their best material, at least in my opinion. So now we're over on, Steamhammer, and the band is done messing around with the, real heavy orchestration and symphonics, at least for now. And they get back to just being a kick-ass German metal band, and that part becomes the focus once more. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier in the show, that, Rage didn't evolve linearly. It's not like they went from speed metal to traditional metal to symphonic metal and just stayed symphonic metal. Now they're kind of circling back around to maybe what they were doing more in the later 80s and earlier, half of the 90s. And I agree with Jurgen. This album's a banger. They really find their sound. This is a sound that works for this lineup. With Smolsky on board, they don't need to be doing the tinkly piano ballads. They need to be doing this kind of, heads down, flashy, traditional metal greatness. So, fantastic album. Not one that I have a ton of history with either. But yeah, this really clicks. This is the Rage I want to hear. And this is definitely, if I had, wandered off from Rage for a few years, while they were at the Symphony, this would definitely have been the point where I would wanted to hop back in and get back on board with what they did. Great album, great start on the new label. And yeah, I feel like, this lineup now knows the direction they should be going in.
Yep.
What do you think about Unity, Marty?
Oh, it's Rage 101, and it's back. They've kind of trimmed the fat here, and it's a really solid album. And let's see here, what do I got? All I Want, Insanity, Down, which is my favorite song on the album. Set This World on Fire. They all explode with that sharp riffing and huge sing-along choruses. Rage rules at the choruses, man. It's a German thing. They're so freaking good at it. This is a fun and endlessly catchy formula that Rage dominate at, and it definitely propels this album to the top of the heap for me. Living My Dream is another, and also a very epic track. There's nothing that falters on this record. I love it. It's a fun, there's no somber this or that. It's just a fun metal record. You want to sing along with it. It's produced really well. You can crank it in the car. It's a great record. It's so much fun. Definitely top tier for me.
Something else, sorry, Marty, something else that's worth pointing out here, because we've been mentioning it the other way. This is the first time since album number 5, Reflection of a Shadow, that they clock in significantly under the 1 hour mark. The album's about 50 minutes long. And like you said, they have trimmed the fat. They're not dragging it out for another 18 minutes. It's the shortest album they've released in a long time, and it makes for a really good, tight listen for sure.
Yep. All right. Where are we at here? That was 2000. No, we're on 2003 now. Oh, this is.
And this, okay, so
So Devin just mentioned Unity is the best since The Missing Link, and I totally agree.
That's it. Yeah. I've enjoyed all the records, but this trumps all that stuff for sure.
Yep, good observation, Devin. I think we're all on that, all on board with that one.
Yep. And my list might reflect that. We'll see at the end.
So you would think Rage found the formula with that album, and for the next album they did. This is a little bit of Unity Part 2, different only in slight little pieces. This one has some hits as well. War of Words, the opening track, is great. The next one, Great Old Ones, is a hit for me. And you don't have any particularly long songs with a lot of symphony and shit like that in it. Soundchaser, the cover says it all. It's just continuing where Unity left off. Great one as well.
Agreed. Alan.
Yeah, Unity Part 2 is a nice, succinct shorthand way to mention this one. They found what they were going to do, and it works great with this lineup. Once again, you have a little bit of a return of the Lovecraft lyrical themes with, Great Old Ones. You still have, some of that more power symphonic stuff, but it's really dialed into the background, and I don't mind it there. at all. It was when they had that as kind of their main focus, when it got unbalanced, that it was bothering me. But on here, when it creeps in a little bit, it's all right. So yeah, great album. The kind of first Smolsky era is in full effect here, and they're nailing it. Enough said. Oh, I wanted to check, how long is this album? Just compared to the last one. This one, again, 53 minutes. So it's like one, maybe one song longer, but they're keeping it in the lower end. It's closer to 50 than 60. So again, they're not bloating the albums as much as they had for several years prior. I can dig it. Marty, what do you think about Soundchaser?
I can dig it. It's, again, Unity Part 2, 100%. Perfect start to another great album. War of Worlds. I mean, what a perfect Rage track. Hard driving, full of playful melody, and the chorus. Man, if you're not singing along with this one, you got to check your pulse because something's wrong. Great old ones: Soundchaser, Defenders of the Ancient Life, Secrets in a Weird World, banger after banger for sure. And you've got Andy Darris from Halloween fame singing some minor backups that are kind of hard to hear on Falling from Grace, the Wake the Nightmares track. They're there, you can hear them, but they toured together during this time. There's a Rage on tour with Halloween. It was a pretty big tour, 28 dates, ending in Hamburg, Germany.
What album does this correspond to in Halloween's catalog, Marty?
This is what year?
We're in 2003.
Would that be Dark Ride? Hold on, let me look real quick.
Feels like it's a little after Dark Ride. I think Dark Ride's closer to turn of the century, but I could be wrong.
2003. That is Rabbit Don't Come Easy era.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which is a good album. Great album. No problems there. But anyway, I have no complaints with this. It's another top tier album for me. Rage at the peak of their power. The Victor era, it's really, really kicking in for me for sure. And that brings us to what year we at now? We're at 2006. Another label change.
Yeah. For SPV, they released in 2004. They released the album From the Cradle to the Stage,
which you sent me that box set. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was you?
Yeah.
I thought I had that box set, but I lost it.
Yeah, you sent me 2 box sets of Rage, actually. Yeah. So if you're missing the other one, I have it as well.
This is a fantastic live album. It's got everything you need. It even has the song Prayers of Steel on it and Suicide, like I said. All the hits on here. Yeah, it's got a drum solo and I think a guitar solo, which is not necessary, but the track list, it has 15, 20 fucking 7 tracks on it. So yeah, great live album.
Yeah.
And the DVD is fun to watch, in my opinion. So 2006. Speak of the Dead. I can't even remember the title.
Uh-oh.
It starts with Sweet Lingua Mortis. Why? And it has a couple of additional songs. I'm done. And it has, they had a track called Full Moon on here, and the bonus track on here is a German version, which is called Vollmond. And you know the expression mooning?
Yeah.
It's the same in German, and a Vollmond is when you present your ass. Yeah, they released Speak of the Dead.
All right.
Period.
Alan.
Speak of the Dead is a Rage album. It's number 15 in their catalog. And it came out in what year? And it came out in 2006. I once saw it for $5. I passed, and I cherish the $5 I did not spend on this album. Over to you, Marty. I wanted to. I don't quite get what went wrong here. it's weird. It's the same lineup that just did the previous 2 albums. There's a label change, but that shouldn't have had that big an impact on things. But this album does not work. You've got the first half of it. They go back to that Lingula Mortis power metal, symphonic-y stuff. And again, that is not for me. And then the second half of the album feels very different. You made this point earlier, Marty, and I think this is one of the albums you were referring to.
This is the album I was referring to. Yep.
Yeah, it's like 2 albums spliced together, and I don't like either half. So, yeah, a big kind of what the hell just happened moment here. You were doing so good. You made 2 fabulous albums, and then this came out. Wow. Marty, do you have an apology worked up for this album?
Probably.
You probably do. But no, again, it's cool that you like some of these that are maybe a little less popular with Jurgen and I. So let's give you time to say good things about it rather than me just saying not so nice things about it.
Well, Victor wrote predominantly the first 9 tracks, and PV most of the second half of the album. So it does feel like 2 albums sandwiched together. The first half of the album is very symphonic oriented. It is largely the metal mixed in with the symphony, but there's also some instrumental tracks that flow in between that are just symphony. And then you've got a track like No Regrets, which kind of pushes the envelope a bit with some electronic flourishes mixed within odd riffs and strings. Again, not for everyone, but it's interesting and very kind of smartly executed. Let me see where I'm at here. My notes are extensive here. A lot of writing. Feverishly typing last night. You know what? Rage never really strays from upholding the German heavy metal spirit here, but they also don't shy away from experimentation. And yeah, you've got 2 albums that are very commercially accepted, and they're shorter records, and the songs are written from a very commercial standpoint. I'm not saying it's, polished pop music. I'm just saying the choruses, the songs are very easy to digest. So I can see why maybe creatively they wanted to move into something a little more spacious and advanced. Again, it sounds a bit lopsided here. Let me see here. Yeah, you get to the second half of the record. PV's track, Soul Survivor, sheds the symphony in favor of a quick and catchy banger of a track. Same with Full Moon and Speak of the Dead. It's well done. It's not a very consistent or focused record. It sounds like 2 EPs. They should have just released 2 EPs and work towards Carved in Stone, which is coming next year in 2008. Jurgen. Thought I had this record, but I can't find it. My kid doesn't have it, and I don't know. I must not have this record. I've listened to it a lot online though.
Which one? Carved in Stone? Or?
Yep, Carved in Stone.
Oh. That's right. The other one's available for $5 still over on Discogs. No one's ever bought that copy.
I don't have that either. I'm going to get it, but yeah,
$5 will get it for you on Discogs. I'd save the $5 if I were you.
All right, 2008 saw the release of Carved in Stone. It's got a gray cover with some round thing in the middle. And a huge Rage logo.
Once again.
They were trying to get back to writing shorter songs and leave out the symphonic stuff for most of the record. But it doesn't work out as good as on Unity and Soundchaser. So gray is a good choice for the color on that record. It's not a bad one.
No,
there are good songs on it, but it's like a little bit gray compared to the 2 bangers they did before. So yeah, nothing that stands out. And with that one, they released another EP with a German song, and I can't stand heavy metal with German lyrics. I think it's called Never Give Up. Is it that? And they translated that to German, and it's it's not a bad album. It's an enjoyable Rage album, but not at the top. This is one of the ones that could float in between number 5 and number 8 and number 17.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we didn't do a ranking.
All right, Alan, your thoughts? Carved on Stone.
Yeah, I very much agree. This is one that could float around a lot. It's a decent album. It's not, a top album, but it's better than what just happened on the previous album. It's got some good moments. The title track is really good. There's the Gentle Murder is pretty good. Also has a lot of just kind of so-so tracks like Open Grave. And then once again, they go back to that ballad well, once again with Without You, which I swear to God, it's like they're trying to, pen their own version of Mr. Big Hit or something. I'm the one who wants to be without you. It's just not their forte. It
Not
just
a
ain't.
dry panty on the internet right now, Alan, by the way.
Well, it's been that way since I showed up tonight.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the album's got some hits, it's got some misses. There is a lineup change here. Let's see, Tirana was out and Hilgers comes in. Hilgers has a long resume of different German bands ranging from Bonfire to Silent Force, worked with Sinner. So, veteran musician coming in. Doesn't radically change their sound or anything, but Smolsky still sounds good here. Again, his style is a little bit different. He's got kind of a hot shot guitar style, and I can appreciate that. So I like what he's doing here. I like some of the songs here. Don't like some of the other songs here. It's a better than average Rage album, but I do agree with Jurgen. If we had tried ranking these, this could have squeaked into the top 10, or it could have barely have gotten above number 20. I don't know where it would have fallen. It would have been very hard to separate. We really would have been splitting some ridiculously thin hairs if we had tried to put all these in a numerical sequence tonight. So I think it was a good idea not to do so.
Yeah.
So yeah, decent Rage album. If I owned all the Rage albums, I suspect while this one is all right, it probably is one of those that would not come off the shelf very often because there's just so many others that would be a little better than it.
Yeah, and if it comes off the shelf, you might enjoy it really pretty much, or you might listen to it and say, yeah, well, okay.
Yeah, play it once and be like, oh yeah, that's a Rage album, and just put it right back on the shelf. That could happen too, you're right. So yeah, no, don't mind it, but yeah, probably not going to make the top 5 tonight. So Marty, where do you stand on this one?
Well, to be noticed, they've got this one, the length of this one whittled down to 47 minutes, which is,
not a bad thing.
It's really good. Yeah. It feels like they kind of wanted to get back to basics on Carved in Stone, obviously coming off of the last kind of half and half sort of symphonic, sort of regular Rage album. The album feels very front loaded again. They always pick their best songs and put them up front, usually. Best songs like Drop Dead, Gentle Murders. I really like that one with the tricky fretboard acrobatics and crushing double bass work. And then Open My Grave. I like the emotion of that one with PV's smooth croon and somber songwriting. From start to finish, it's a constant and excellent Rage album. Consistent and excellent Rage album. Does it dethrone Unity or Soundchaser? No, it doesn't. But it's like Jurgen said, if someone threw it in, going on a trip, threw it in, it'd be a fun listen for the entirety of it. I don't know. I need to buy it. It's on my to get list of the 5 I'm missing. So it'll end up here one of these days. But that brings us to Strings to a Web, 2010 on Nuclear Blast Records.
Yeah. Another shift in labels. So.
Oh, you've got the CD as well. Right on.
Yeah, I've got the CD as well. So I bought that one when it came out because it got pretty good reviews, and that was still in the time where I was a little bit, let's call it hit and miss with the Rage catalog. I enjoyed Unity and soundchaser stuff. I ignored Carved in Stone when it came out. I don't know for what reason, but I bought that one when it came out. They brought back a little bit, like we said at the beginning of the show. They now have a toolbox where they can just blindly take a grip in that box and pull out stuff. So this one has a little bit of the symphonic stuff coming back. Not too much though. It's way better than Speak of the Dead. And this one has a real hit on it. It's got a part of the bigger musical piece in here is Empty Hollow, and this is a great piece of music. The whole bigger musical piece in here is way better than the stuff they did before. So they learned their crafts. I think it's a little bit driven by Victor Smolsky's classical training.
Yeah,
makes sense.
It's a good one.
Agreed. Alan?
This is another one that feels a little spliced together to me. The first several songs are more straightforward, and there's some decent ones in there. The album starts out pretty well, but you get to that Empty Hollow suite, and all of a sudden, we're right back, in very heavily orchestral territory, and that's just not the Rage sound that works for me personally. So the album shows some promise, but that middle section, I'm just like, no, sorry, you wandered over into that territory again too much, and you lost me there. So I agree they're doing it better than they did on some of the previous symphonic heavy outings, but it still hasn't connected with me. Not an album I've heard a lot. I did go back to this one 2 or 3 times because I know this one, some folks like it quite a bit. So I gave this one several chances thinking it might click a little better. And the early tracks did. Again, the first handful of tracks, I think there's some good stuff there. But as soon as they start breaking out the viola cases and tuning the cellos, no thanks, just not for me. Marty, I think you like this one though.
Yeah, this is one I found on eBay for $5 for my kid. Granted, it's a digipack; it's pretty well worn, but he was like, I'd be sitting out in the living room, I could hear it blasting through the walls. I'm like, which one is that? And he's like, oh, it's that Rage Strings to the Web. And then I got sucked into it. I think it's a great record. I really do. I kind of wanted to, if we were to rank this, I don't know, it'd be high in the list. But this DVD also comes with a official festival bootleg live at Wacken Open Air 2009. Fun concert. But yeah, I mean, it feels like Rage are on fire again. Victor, total beast, the guitarist, love his playing style. That Edge of Darkness, I think, isn't that early one? Yep, first song. Opens with some mind-blowing harmonic tapping thing that's totally unique and fun, just really cool. PV even demonstrates some of his bass chops later in the track with that tasty bass lick as a counterpoint. Very good. Great lead-off track of the album. Hunter and Praise next. Yep. Crushing hook laden excellence, Into the Light. Very soulful, much lighter track, but full of colorful guitar work. I really like Victor's playing. He's really, really a good player. Stealing a Beggar's Last Dime. Very fun track. Then we flow into the Empty Hollow 5-song concept. There's a lot of flashy and exciting guitar work that dominates these pieces, but you got the strings and the synth filtering back in. They keep returning to it. They must really like working with that within that medium, but brings the atmosphere. It makes the middle of the album seem a bit more melancholic and theatrical than the bookend tracks, but it's all well achieved, man. They do a good job. Gives the album a lot of character. And yeah, Savior of the Dead, lower tuned and chunky. Good, but my least favorite on the album. Hellgirl is fun. Purified's a banger. Yeah, another album filled with variety and fun, and I'm fine with that. 100% fine with that. That leads to number 2012. The album is called 21. Another one I don't have.
Full-length studio in there. Yeah. So this one, most folks would count as 18, but the band considers it their 21st album, hence the title 21.
Did you say the band or the bank?
Maybe both.
So yeah, 2012, 21. This one seems a little bit like P is already fed up with what Smolsky did on the last couple of albums, so a little bit of taking over the band, because that one they returned with a banger. I don't say it is one of my favorites, but this is probably their heaviest album, at least at that point. They've got some fun topics on there, but they've got some really serious stuff. It's a shorter album, only 3-sided, and on the song Serial Killer, PV started to discover his death metal voice a little bit.
Yep.
So experimenting with that. It's a good one, but it's one of those. At one point, when I put it on, it can be in my top 10, and another day I pull it out, it can be at the bottom. Yeah, depending on my mood. So yeah, good album.
I had never heard this record until this week, and I agree with you. It's a good album. Anyway, Alan, what did you think about 21?
Yeah, Jurgen's point about maybe PV wanting to, rein in Smolsky, but makes
cleanse the air.
Because this is also Smolsky's last album with the band, and he would go on to like his Almanac project, which we've talked about on other episodes, and that has a real symphonic Avantasia wannabe kind of vibe about it at times. So that makes a lot of sense what Jurgen just said. So yeah, this is a heavier album. PV's going a bit harsher on the vocals with like the track Serial Killer and such. It's got the weird kind of little opening thing with 21 being the blackjack, and there's this little spoken intro where people are playing blackjack and losing. I don't know. The intro is a little weird. It worried me for a minute. I was like, I don't know what they're going to do, but what they do is, they go back to basics and make a more aggressive sounding, heavier album. And so once again, we see this kind of non-linearity with Rage, where they'll do some symphonics for a bit, then they'll maybe go back and make something that feels a lot more aggressive than anything else they've done in quite a while. But then they might go back in more of a power metal direction later. So yeah, this one does rank as a good album, not a S tier best of all time kind of album. And to Jurgen's point, I could see this being one that you might put it on and think, fantastic album, or it might be one you put on and be like, maybe not today. So it's very much kind of a middle of the pack type album. But I do like the fact that they did kind of get out of the symphonic style. Again, that's just not the Rage material I enjoy. Other folks do, and that's absolutely cool. But I do prefer what they're doing here. Smolsky still gets to do plenty of hotshot guitar stuff here. So it's still a nice send-off for him, even if he's not doing full-blown orchestra mode here. So that's my take on 21. Marty, you said this one was kind of new to you this week. So what did you decide about this one?
This one, I spun it once and like, oh yeah, I've listened to it twice, but I'm least familiar with it. They're not reinventing the wheel, but they don't need to. It's just really well done. Forever Dead shines with pinch harmonics and tricky riff work. Victor, even though he's not, like Alan said, composing here, he's doing what he does really well, and that's shred. Feel My Pain, Serial Killer, also really good songs. 21, solid opener. Not a bad track in the bunch. I'm with Jurgen on this one. It's a really solid record. I was really, really surprised, and it's funny because I wasn't really paying attention to the lineup too much, but as soon as I put on this one, The Devil Strikes Back, or the Devil Strikes Again. You could tell there's different guitar players on here, really pretty quick. But what did you think of this one?
Do you want to hear the story why Rage and Victor Smolsky, or the lineup, really broke up?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's why we're here.
So, okay, they had arguments for a couple of years, and Victor Smolsky was almost at the point to throw out PV of his own band.
How does that work?
Yeah. Then, for the promotion for 21, PV was in, I think, Russia or Belarus for a promotional thing, and he saw tour posters on the wall, and he found out that Victor Smolsky was touring with Russian musicians under the Rage name.
Holy crap.
So that's why he threw out Andre and Victor.
Wow.
So yeah,
That would do it.
Another big letdown for PV. But he was asked by a couple of friends if he wanted to get to pull the Money and Chris lineup together for a little party. So they played a little party and did, I don't know, 5 songs from the old Rage catalog, and that went down pretty well. And soon enough, they got requests from festivals to do old school Rage shows. So they decided to do it under the Refuge moniker. So I saw them at Rock Hard Open Air in 2015. That is a huge amphitheater. I was sitting down. It was 6,500 people, and they played all their old hits. And I was literally sitting there having tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
So,
And they put out an album under it.
yeah. But before that, they did that huge box set, the Refugees.
That was my kid's big Christmas present this past year. He loved it. Yeah.
A lot of shit on here. It's got all the old albums, the EPs, live DVDs, live CDs,
Signed
all
poster, pictures, all that shit. Yep. It's very cool.
And yeah. Oh, I didn't pull out the album. Yeah, they did the Solitary Man Refuge album in 2018, something like
I'll
that.
show it again. It's really good. It's a good record.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't sound. It does sound like old Rage, but it doesn't. It's a little bit more mid-paced.
Yep.
But yeah. So after all that, Rage, or let's say PV, had a new lineup with completely new musicians, and in 2016 he put out that one. This one blew me away. I don't know what song it was. I think it was My Way that they did a video for. It's a stupid song, but it's a fucking great song.
Yep.
It sounded old school as fuck. It sounded lively. It sounded. They had fun doing that. I don't know. It's. I can't find the real words for it. It just blew me away when it came out. So yeah, this is a great one. If you haven't listened to the newer Rage stuff, this is one I would check out. The cover is stupid as well, but yeah. At least it's got a huge red Rage logo on it.
Yep.
It's kind of a circular thing under the Rage logo. It's just covered in maggots.
There you go.
There it is. Yep. All right. Alan, your thoughts on The Devil Strikes Again?
Yeah, Marty is right. You put this one on and you know right away that Victor Smolsky is not playing guitar. But the guys who are doing just fine. And I would agree with Jurgen. This one was kind of a pleasant surprise. I don't have any history with this album. And with Smolsky out, being a newer album, lineup change, I was like, this one might not pan out very well. but it actually does. It's really good. I actually went back and played it several times over a few weeks, kind of like, was it really that good? Yeah, it really is that good. And I think something that helps it is, again, they've got the balance. There's a thrashy side to this. There's a speedy part to this. There's just a good traditional heavy metal side to this. And everything is mixed and balanced well. They're not leaning into that, overly symphonic, power metal style that they sometimes have, wandered too far into for my preferences, at least. They've got a good sound here, good tracks. This is a very solid album. I don't think it's going to be top 5 at the end of the night, but this one would rank pretty high. I could see this one squeaking into my top 10 if we were going that far down the list, which we're not going to. So I agree with Jurgen. If folks wanted to check out a sort of recent Rage album to see what the band has been doing over the past decade or so, I'd have no problem recommending this one as a good place for folks to kind of check in and see what they're doing. So yes, a solid and good album featuring the new lineup. Marty, your takes on I always want to call it Speak of the Devil, but no, it's Devil Strikes Again.
Yeah, it put it on. I mean, I got this used at a local record store for cheap, and the cover is so unassuming and whatever. But it's like opening minutes of this thing. It's a more brutal Rage. It just sounds. The production is really kind of set in, more modern. Has kind of a heavier feel, more brutal. This Marcos Rodriguez guy, he doesn't have Victor's guitar trickery, but he's a great guitar player. And
agreed.
He just has more of a traditional approach to the instrument, I think, than Victor did, but he still remains very lethal and a good solid riff writer. Back on Track, great song, along with the opener, My Way, Spirits of the Night. Not a bad one on here once again. The album just feels more serious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does have a little darker tone. That's a really good point, Marty.
Yeah, less fun or festival accessible. Even Peavy's rock solid vocals, he's adopted more of a grit to his voice to match the power of the tracks. It's a damn good album. It's just not as instantly rewarding. I had to work at it a little bit, but I got there. Really well written. But that leads us to Seasons of the Black, Nuclear Blast 2017. Jurgen.
All right, Seasons of the Black. The cover artwork is awful. But at least you've got the soundchaser on it.
Yep.
The first half of the album, I bought that on vinyl when it came out. I don't know about the CD versions of that. This one has 2 sides worth of cool songs, not as good as the previous album. Side 3 has The Tragedy of Man, which brings back a little bit of the symphonic stuff here and there. It's a 4-part song that takes around 22 minutes. And on side 4, it has Avenger Revisited. So with the new, at that point, it was still a 3-piece with Marcos, Peavy, and Vasilos on drums. They re-recorded a couple of old Avenger songs, and that is the fun part for me of the album. So yeah, it's a good album, but by far not as good as The Devil Strikes Again.
All right, Alan.
All right, this is another one I had no history with. And yeah, looking at the cover, you're kind of like, what's going to happen here? But yeah, it's comparable to the previous album. I agree with Jurgen. It's not as good. I don't think it's a huge step down, though. I would probably have these two ranked pretty close to each other if we did a full ranking. It gets off to a really good start. I like the title track, Season of the Black. Looking through here. Now there's I think it's a cover, Septic Bite. Oh, no, it's not a cover, but it's kind of a goofy song about, Tyrannosaurus Rexes being venomous or something. It sounds fun, but it doesn't quite work out. It's not a mess, but it's just like, fun idea, didn't quite come together. You do have a few symphonic things creep back in, but they're kept, in check. I do got to say though, that intro to part 1 Gaia, where PV all of a sudden turns into like James Taylor for a minute.
It's not good.
It's like, what the hell, man? You're PV. This is Rage. This ain't no James Taylor show. Come on. But they shake it off and move on. Justify also, kind of again leans in that symphonic direction, but it's just for a little bit, and it's well done. Yeah, but it does have a little bit of an Avantasia vibe to it. But yeah, overall, pretty decent album. This is another one that I went back to a handful of times because it's like, okay, my initial notes had that one. It was like, pretty strong thumbs up. Was it really that good? Yeah, it's held up to multiple listens over the past couple of months. So a pretty good Rage album. I do agree, though, with Jurgen. I do think Devil Strikes Again is better, but I think this one is fine, too. So we're kind of 2 albums into this, Marcos era, and the band is on pretty solid footing, I think, in the post-Smolsky lineup. Marty, what do you think of the album with the sad Soundchaser skull on the cover?
This is the first time I've heard this album as well, so I don't have a lot of time invested in this, but it does feel like the sensible successor to can I remember the name either? The Devil Strikes Again. Yeah, more grit, heavier, more driving double bass in these songs. Marcos, he's showing off a bit more of his flair on this one for sure. Some harmonic finger tapping. The title track and opener is Furious with a very mighty chorus, which is, traditional Rage, basically. Very well written. Serpent in Disguise, another banger. Walk Among the Dead, full of bright and acrobatic lead lines. Double bass is hammering on this one. Then, the Gaia, it's on my list, is like, what the hell's happening here? Chirping birds and, ugh.
I've seen fire, I've seen rain.
But it does slide into the majestic twin lead guitar lines of Justify.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a very minor sidestep, but I don't know. This is another good album. It's on my list to buy. It's probably going to rank pretty low because I have not invested the time in it. But yeah, we're up to 2020. We're getting near the end. Wings of Rage, which is...
Yep. And this will be the last one with this particular lineup. You had 3 albums here.
My kid has this one on vinyl because he's a pretty cool kid. Some of the stuff he owns kind of bugs me. Granted, I bought all this crap for him, but still. Damn it.
So yeah, 2020. The year 2020 had not too much highlights, be it musical or elsewhere. I'm gonna give away my ranking. This is my 3rd favorite Rage album.
Wow.
I love it front to back. I listen to it
record.
all the time.
Yeah.
It may look like a long album because it's got many tracks, but there's no crap tracks on it. I am that glad that I've got a Wings of Rage power bank to load my mobile phone.
Nice. Your Jitterbug phone. Jitterbug.
And I've got like a towel, an actual towel.
A Rage Sham Wow.
There you go.
That's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. Just don't wipe anything of your body on it. It might turn it green.
Yeah, I bought the box set. Rage is selling their stuff on their homepage for quite good prices.
They are.
So when new Rage stuff comes out, I almost exclusively buy that on their homepage. So It's got a poster as well, and a flag, and the CD, and autographs, and shit like that. So yeah, and a towel and a power bank.
Yep. All right. Alan.
Okay, so yeah, third and last for this lineup of the band. A lot of horror themes explored here. I don't think I like it as much as Jurgen, but it's not a bad album. And again, this lineup has been pretty consistent and done pretty well. This album, even though it's got this kind of dark theme of wanting to explore some horror topics, it doesn't feel particularly heavy or dark. A lot of these songs have a little more of a sing-along quality, so a little lighter in construction. They don't go overboard into full-blown orchestral symphonic stuff, though. Maybe once or twice, but not. It's not the focus of the album, so that's okay. But yeah, there's just more big, obvious sing-along moments. They even have a couple of Misfit style, whoa kind of moments in a couple of the choruses. It's like, okay, yeah, we definitely have to stand up and chant along to this one. So yeah, pretty good record. This one could grow on me with time. It's another one I have very little history with. And there is one ballad I could do without with Shine a Light. But again, if it's only one glitch on the album, it's not the end of the world. This one would... it'd be somewhere probably in the top half of the catalog, but I don't know where. I won't have it in the top 5 like Jurgen has kind of spoiled he's going to. But I do think this one, it's a fine album and kind of wraps up this lineup of the band on good footing. Rage was doing some good stuff with this particular lineup. Maybe not their strongest ever, but certainly noteworthy. Marty, your turn to tackle this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's another great record, really. The band remains a little bit heavier and darker under the axemanship of Marcos. But yet on that opening track, True, the darkness kind of emerges into the light for that uplifting chorus, which is like, there's the Rage we know and love for sure. Exactly. I've just kind of learned to trust the process with this band. They might feel like you're going in a certain direction. They always take you in a place that's interesting, at least. Let Them Rest in Peace, another good song, as is Chasing the Twilight Zone, Wings of Rage, Don't Let Me Down. This one's a fave. I do like the symphonic elements on that one, and the choir background singers mixed with speed metal riffing. It's kind of a cool mix. I will say, with this heavier direction, he's doing a grittier performance here, and he's still, don't get me wrong here, a great singer. He sounds unique. He sounds like himself, but it seems like he struggles a bit with some of the cleaner, smoother vocal passages on here. He never really falters, but I think we're starting to witness the natural progression of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's getting older. He's been so much music, so many songs, so many shows. He never falters here, but I think he wears it well. I'm just making I'm just noticing that he's starting, he's sounding older, but he's still doing it. He's still a beast on the mic. So that's one thing you start to realize, the passage of time.
Yeah, no, that's a fair observation. He's been doing it for close to 40 years by the time this album comes out. So of course, he's going to lose a bit there.
Yep. But that brings us to 2021 Resurrection Day. Jurgen.
So yeah, Resurrection Day, the follow-up. It's a good album. That is a little bit shorter than the previous one. It's got great songs on it. Virginity, or what was the other one? Monetary Gods. Fantastic songs.
Yep.
It's not as good as Wings of Rage, in my opinion. It's got a fantastic cover artwork, and I need to get the vinyl for that, but the vinyl for that is pretty expensive.
The kid's got a poster of this on his wall. Came with the CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a patch.
Oh, we didn't get the patch. What the hell? Oh, wait. Dang it. Okay. No patch. All right. Alan, what'd you think of Resurrection Day?
Yeah, so again, another shift, and this time you've got a 4-man lineup, which, Rage, is often, been more in the 3-man configuration. So they change for this one, expand a bit. And I agree. I think this is a really solid album. Not a lot of frills to it. It's on the heavier side for Rage, but everything is still kind of, in balance. They never go, full hardcore or full thrash or anything. It stays in that traditional metal pocket, but this one's leaning towards the heavier side of the spectrum instead of the symphonic side of the spectrum. And I'll usually take that in my Rage albums. So yeah, another one that has held up well. No history with the album whatsoever. I've played it a handful of times over the past few months, but I like what I've heard. If Rage albums ever showed up in the wild around here, it's the kind of thing that, I'd be more than happy to pick up. They just never materialize in my neck of the woods. But I was pleasantly surprised. Again, I don't necessarily expect a ton out of some of these legacy bands by this point in their career. A lot of them, let's be honest, they kind of go back to the formula they had in their heyday, and they just kind of stay there, which is okay to a point, but it can get kind of boring. While Rage, continues to shift around a little bit from time to time, it doesn't feel like they've ever wanted to really just go back and remake Perfect Man or Trapped album after album after album. And I can really appreciate that about their catalog. I like the fact that with each one of these, it never became predictable, like, okay, here's another Rage album. It'll probably sound exactly like the last one. They have not done that to themselves. And kudos to them. I wish more bands would follow their example. So yeah, really good album. I like this one.
Yeah, I mean, they're back to a quartet here. They got 2 guitar players, and the guitar tone is thick. The production on this is really good. And it's a really good album. When my kid picked this up, I couldn't believe how good it was. I mean, like Alan said, a band this late in their career, it's easy for them to go back to their touchstone records, the ones that showed a lot of. But this is a band proving that they're still relevant. They're still moving forward. They're still, while still sounding like Rage, still sounding like what they are. But yeah, thick guitar tone. I really like the intro to this album. It's got Resurrection Day. It's got a very epic, almost cinematic twin guitar line thing, and that they follow back on at the end of the song. Very, very cinematic. But yeah, I mean, it's just a modern day Rage record that's really well done. It's 12 songs. They all kind of kick ass. No complaints. 0 complaints here. And that leads us to where we're at now, even though PV has just posted a thing saying that he's in the studio right now working on a new Rage record. So there you go. But where was it? 2023?
24.
2024.
Yeah.
After
album number 23 in the year 2024, and they're back to a 3-man lineup.
Yep. After Lifelines.
Just before that, Resurrection Day came out in 2021, and you can't have a year without a Rage release. So they released an EP with a couple of leftovers from the Resurrection album.
That's good too. My kids got that as well. It's good.
That one is called Spreading the Plague. It's a short listen. It's 22 minutes long. All cool songs. So yeah. You can't go wrong with that.
What's up,
so
Dennis?
2024. After Lifelines, they did a double album in the twilight of their years. And they tried to split it up between a full-blown metal album and a metal album with classical elements. And they did well on that.
They did.
I really love the album.
Yeah.
If you look at the track listing, that is a mouthful, huh?
21 songs. Yeah.
21 songs for their
40 minutes for the first album and 45 for the second disc. So you're looking at a solid 85 minutes of music.
Yep.
And not a bad track on there. Nothing that drags on or I don't know. I when I read about it, I thought, oh fuck no. um, when it came out, I ordered the box set. Nonetheless, I've done a review for your channel on the album. As soon as I put on side 1, I thought, well, not too bad. I put on side 2, and there was no letdown on side 2.
100% agree. Yep.
So I thought, well, let's put on the Lifelines album. That symphonic stuff can be a little bit hit and miss, but fuck, it's good. It doesn't sound as symphonic as it appeared to be.
Very well integrated.
It's just another great metal album, just with the symphonic touch to it. So yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic. And yeah, you said they are in the studio, so that one came out in 2024. We can't live without a Rage record in 2024.
They got 6 months to crank it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hurry up, Peter.
All right.
Yeah. Great one. I'm looking forward to the next one. So.
Me too. 100%. Alan.
Hey, this album's a disaster on paper. It's pushing 90 minutes long. It's another lineup shift. It's a double album, and it, promises to go back in the symphonic direction. This is not a winning formula, except it works really well.
It's so good.
I won't go. I played this album twice because it is a massive undertaking to get through. I've only spun this twice, so this is kind of initial impression. But it's quite solid throughout, and I agree with what y'all just said. This is one instance where they really do mix in the symphonic parts well.
Yep.
That it doesn't overpower things. They don't put symphony way up here and band back here. They actually get it balanced, and that's something I've complained about on the more symphonic albums tonight. This one, I'm not going to bring up that complaint, because this time I think they worked it into the sound in a really strong way without allowing it to sort of overpower things. This is just first impression. If I listen to it a bunch more, might start to feel differently one way or the other. This is one, again, it could get better with more spins. It might wear me out with more spins. But yeah, I'm really impressed that they took this concept of such a long album, trying to go back to that symphonic well again, and they actually did find a way that, at least on first impression, they made it work. So kudos to them. I don't think a lot of bands could have made this work out well, but they did. Marty, wrap us up here.
Yep. Another present for my kid. Again, I kind of wish I had this turkey butt. Yeah, this record, you're 100% right, Alan. On paper, you're thinking no, 2 whole albums, but I mean, yeah, it feels like they're working with black magic at this point to maintain this level of excellence. But End of Illusions, they still proves that starts the album off, proves they still have an understanding of what Rage is and how to write a fantastic song. God, and Peavy, he's really going for it in that chorus too. He's really up there in the higher register. It's just a great song. Under a Black Crown, another perfect song. Dead Man's Eyes, Water War, Justice Will Be Mine, all great songs. Side 1 feels like a classic Rage record, banger after banger. Then just 2, as we mentioned, the orchestra enters the fray. But like Alan said, it's a bit more subtle. The symphonic element is a bit more subtle. It's worked in really well within the metal. Cold Desire, oh my God, it leads off the album. What a fantastic song. It's maybe the best song on the album. It's just 100% filled with quality, and you should, if you want to listen to one album one day and one the next day, fine, but they each feel like their own separate experience, and there's no loss of quality. from start to finish. I don't feel like, oh, this is getting a bit long, or oh, this is not as good as the other songs. It just feels very cohesive and very focused. They this late in their career, they're still dialing it in and putting out excellent music. So there, we just ripped through that in 3 hours, but
getting through it in 3 hours, yeah, we moved at a fairly nice pace, I think.
Yep. We have some
But now we
unfinished
do have
business.
Yep, that we do. We said that we would, at the end, reveal our top 5 and our bottom 5. I'm going to suggest we do our least favorites first, just so we're not ending on a downer note. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, we'll do our bottom 5, and then we'll do our top 5.
All right, Jurgen.
Okay, I'm not going to pull out the albums again. You've
I was
seen
just thinking
them.
about that too, and I'm like, oh, let's make a mess. No.
Yeah, no need.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I guess the lowest ranking we can give something is 23, the way we've counted their studio albums.
So
we
I'm
can
going.
also just say these are my bottom 5.
So yeah, bottom 5. I'm going with my least favorite to the worst least favorite.
Okay.
So on number 5, we have Welcome to the Other Side. Because I just can't get into the album, probably. On number 4, it's a Resurrection Day.
Wow. I'm surprised.
Number 3 is Reflections of a Shadow. I can't get into that album. I've known that for, I don't know, 35 years, something like that. It's not for me. Number 2 of my least favorite is Ghosts. Because it has such a weak vocal performance, and you can hear the disillusion in the band. And my least favorite is Speak of the Dead. Because
Okay.
it's, yeah.
So this would be your least favorite. Gotcha.
Don't get me wrong. I can even put on Speak of the Dead and get some enjoyment out of it.
Yep.
So that speaks for the band.
Jurgen, can you go through those one more time? I was making notes, but I had your numbers backwards.
So number 5 was Welcome to the Other Side. Number 4 was Resurrection. Number 3, Reflections of a Shadow. Number 2, Ghosts. And number 1, Speak of the Dead.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Alan, what are your top 5 worst albums?
My
Least
5
favorite albums from Rage?
Let's see, 5 least favorite albums. All right. I'll try to do them the same way Jurgen did. So the one that almost made it out of this list but didn't quite make it out of this list. So I guess that'd be like my number 19 ranking was Ghosts. I agree with Jurgen. Yeah, that one doesn't have a ton redeeming it. Next up, 20 was Welcome to the Other Side. Yep, not a great introduction to the Smolsky era of the band. Let's see, 21. Yeah, this album again. This one didn't click with me. The Strings to a Web album. That one lost me in the middle of the album. These symphonic ones are a tough sell for me. So then 22, not the worst, but close to it. Speak of the Devil. Yep, that one wasn't working for me. And my least favorite, where is it? This was pretty easy. I knew this was going to be at the bottom. 13. Yeah, that album does not work for me at all. So those are my 5 least favorite Rage albums. Marty, how about your list?
I gotta say, usually you look at like we do an overkill ranking. If we were going to pick our least favorite overkill records, that's not hard. It isn't hard. And you go through Saxon, you go through BOC. Every band that's a legacy band that's had a long run, it's usually the middle era towards the end where things start getting weak. It's easy to pick, but this catalog it stymied me time and time again. There's only one album that I would really say I don't care for this record, but it still doesn't bother me. If we were putting it on, I'd like it. There's stuff on all these records I still like. So my number 5 might be a kind of a surprise, but Execution Guaranteed. I think that their second album, I think there's some good shit on it. It's just a very bizarre production, and I think the songwriting is a bit choppy. They haven't quite got all the nuts and bolts ironed out yet. I think it's classic. It's got the classic sound. I just think they became better songwriters as they progressed.
No, that's fair. I was kind of surprised it wasn't in my bottom 5. It could have been.
Seasons of the Black is next, and it's only because I didn't have a lot of time with it. I think it could have grown on me more. It's heavier, later era Rage. It's nothing offensive about it, but something's got to be there. 3, Speak of the Dead. Yep, that's 2 albums mushed together, kind of a mess. Again, I still like stuff on it. If you were to put it on, I'd enjoy it. I'm probably going to buy it if it ever turns up. Ghosts in the number 2 position with although I do kind of like parts of it. I think it's just different. I think it's misunderstood. I think it's a bit long. It's well written. I think it's well written. It's a kind of somber record. I don't know. But it isn't what I'm reaching for. And number 1 of the least favorite is Reflections of a Shadow. This thing is just very samey. The songs are pretty interchangeable. It just kind of drags. There's not a lot of excitement here, but again, it's well done. They write good songs. It just, something has to be at the end, and this is the one. So that brings us to the top 5 that we love. We think they're the best Rage albums.
Just looking at the bottom 5, it's interesting. Like there's 2 of those that all 3 of us put in our bottom 5, and a couple that 2 of the 3 of us put in. So, again, it's a very small sample size. It's just the 3 of us, but there is some consensus on which albums did not work out so great, which is interesting. With such a huge catalog, it'd be easy for our picks to be all over the place, but we actually did zero in on some albums that none of us really got into compared to the rest of the catalog.
So top 5. Number 5, that may surprise you maybe a little bit. It's Black in Mind. The album grew on me.
It's a good album.
Yeah. Although it's a little bit mid-paced and chunky and a little bit, for that time, a little bit modern sounding, I love the album. It's got great songs. Number 4 is Secrets in a Weird World. It's the first longer album, but Secrets has no letdown songs on it. Number 3, I already mentioned that. One of the newer ones, 2020, Wings of Rage. I just love it. I don't know. I've got that in my car all the time. Number 2, of course, Missing Link, followed with my number 1, Trapped.
Very fair. Agree with a lot of those. Yep.
Okay. So kind of a heavy emphasis on the Mammy era there. 3 of Jurgen's top 5 from that Mammy era. Interesting.
All right, you're up, Alan.
All right, let's see. For me, let's see. I'll also start in the Mammy era with number 5, Perfect Man. I like that one a lot. Number 4, I'll stay in the Mammy era and have Trapped at number 4. Number 3, still in the Mammy era with Secrets in a Weird World. And then let's see, for my top 2, we will get out of the Mammy era, and we will jump to the Smolsky era. Number 2, Soundchaser, and I would put Unity at number 1 at this point in history.
Nice. Okay.
So, yep. That Smolsky era is weird for me because it's got, a couple, I just said, 2 favorites there with Unity and Soundchaser, but I also listed, Welcome to the Other Side and Speak of the Dead as 2 of my least favorites. So a really back and forth part of their catalog for me personally. And that's just in the first half of the Smolsky era. So yeah, that stood out to me as like, I can't say that's my favorite era because even though it's got my top 2, it's also got 2 of my bottom 2. But those are my top 5. So Marty, very interested to see what you've got. Oh, go ahead.
At that point with the Victor Smolsky era, the toolbox they had a grab in was already well developed. Mm-hmm. So they could grab in the wrong section and they could grab in the right section.
That's a good way to put it, Jurgen. Yep. Well said. Yep. I like that.
All right. Okay. Number 5 for me. This list changed a bunch over the after Lifelines. Man, it dethroned some classics here, but I just can't get over how well written it is and how impressed I was with it. Number 4, Missing Link.
I'm sorry, Marty. You had After Lifelines.
After Lifelines, number 5. Yep.
Okay.
Number 4, Missing Link. Trap Part 2, essentially. A really well written record. Hits the player often. Number 3, Unity. So good. Very commercial, more of an accessible record for a bigger, more diverse metal audience, but so good. Number 2, Soundchaser. We're still in the pocket here. That was a follow-up to Unity, wasn't it?
Yep.
It's excellent. And number 1, Trapped.
And nothing's enough, Marty.
Yep. This album is fantastic, and what a banger! Such a, Unity could be there too. It's very similar. Missing Link could be there too. Soundchaser could be there too. So many quality choices were made during this certain eras of the band, but yeah, I should. I shared a picture with the chat tonight. You guys hanging out at the bar. Glad you had fun.
Yep. Cheers to Jim and Rick having fun. And yeah, so interesting. We also all kind of zeroed in on a few albums in our top 5 too. And I did not know this going in, but yeah, when I was talking about, sort of the Mammy era being the golden era of Rage, our favorites really reflect that. We all picked multiple albums from those years. So yeah, they definitely had something special going on at that time.
We were recognized at the record store, and the guy said, "Heavy Metallurgy is the best metal channel. Cool to meet y'all, but I wish it was the Professor." That's hilarious.
Well, Jim, I'll have to come down and visit sometime, and we'll go back and brighten his day.
That's hilarious.
That's cool. Cheers to the record store clerk for giving Rick and Jim a shout out.
So I know what Jurgen feels about this band. I think he's been following them for a very long time. Alan, what was your takeaway from having to sit through 20 some Rage records, which you maybe had 2 or 3 of their, probably 4 maybe of their records over the years, or how many more did you have? You weren't very familiar with the middle era, were you?
Oh yeah, no, with the bulk. The first 2 eras, I knew a good amount of, and after that, I knew 1 or 2 here or there. So let's say, maybe a third of their catalog and that may be rounding up. But no, final thoughts. It's a very consistent band, but within that consistency, again, they do go back and forth. They do try different things. Sometimes that lined up with different labels. Sometimes that lined up with different lineups. But again, I do appreciate the fact that they didn't just linearly move from being like, an 80s speed metal band to a 90s, sort of, chugging band. And then went back to, making Reign of Fear volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. They've avoided that standard clause nuclear blast contract that we've joked about other bands kind of getting trapped in, where it's like, we'll keep you on the label, but you just got to make the same album that you made 30 years ago over and over because people will buy it. Rage has continued to mix things up just enough to stay consistent, but to keep things interesting such that you don't know exactly what they're going to do on the next album. And I think that's really cool. So no, I've enjoyed getting to check out the catalog. Am I going to go run out and buy 15 Rage albums this weekend? Absolutely not. But again, if I come across them here and there at record shows or stuff like that, the ones that I've enjoyed, I'd be more than happy to have some more Rage on the shelf. So yeah, a cool band. I feel bad that they've always been a little bit overlooked, at least here in the United States. But that's just the fate of a traditional metal band. It's a tough nut to crack on this side of the Atlantic sometimes. But kudos to them for having a great run over the years. That's about all I can say. So, Marty, you're obviously have become quite the Rage fan. What would you like to sort of close with?
Well, we'll let Jurgen go first. I'll end it. Go ahead, Jurgen. What are your thoughts on how would you wrap up this Rage dive?
Yeah, I've been with them along the way pretty much, just a couple of gaps that I had to fill. And I enjoy every period of the band. They don't have a crap album. So let's compare them to where they started as a band. Compare them to maybe Destruction or Creator or Running Wild. Rage is a very consistent band, and they don't have crap periods in their discography. So nothing to put on that I would say is like really shitty album or a badly produced album. Like, let's say Running Wild had some drum computer issues. I'm sorry, Angelo Sasso issues. Destruction had that weird period without Schmier. Creator had that gothic and industrial periods. They all have. Let's go back to the toolboxes. They all have big toolboxes, but for the other bands, some of the tools aren't. Yeah,
they get rusty. The tools get rusty over the years.
Mm-hmm. And Rage, I don't know. They are. I think, along with Sodom, they are the most consistent band here in Germany.
And the more you use it, the better you get at it. I mean, he hasn't really taken there was the longest break in their catalog was a 2-year break.
Mm-hmm. Where
a lot of these bands get so lost in the weeds of going out and touring for 2 years, maybe, or a year, it sets you back. And then you have to get back and start writing an album. I mean, there's a 3-year gap in between releasing albums. Here, Rage, PV's on it, man. He's on it. Even the years that they toured, that big tour they did with Halloween, they still put out a record the year after. So, I mean, very driven and prolific.
Speaking about that, have we done Sodom deep dive?
No,
Not
but
yet.
Devin has mentioned he would like to be a part of that. So, Jurgen, if you'd like to return for that, we could get Devin on as well, and he could.
Oh yeah. And I, for my appearances on your show, I broke a record. I had only 1.5 beers.
This is crazy.
You're like 4.5 beers behind.
I've been.
Yeah, I can make up for that if we do a Sodom show.
It's my 6th PBR.
I'm talking about beer.
Oh yeah. This is slop and foam. I will agree 100%.
So yeah, your thoughts on Rage in general?
I am very impressed. I respect this band a lot. I think they're a fantastic band, and I'm just kind of gobsmacked. At the end of the day, as long as they've been around, even their least desirable records are still good. Like Jurgen said, there's no straight up, there isn't an Endorama or an Outcast in this collection. There isn't a, what's another one?
Least successful.
Yep, least
Human
successful Human
Cannonball.
Cannonball. There's no Shadow whatever by Running Wild.
There's no Sigh No More or Heading to Tomorrow period from Gamma Ray. Even if you like those albums, it's a weird period for Gamma Ray. There's no Chameleon.
Yep, and it's just it really is impressive how good of a songwriter not only PV but whoever else he gets in this band. And their experimentations are typically met with a lot of, like Jurgen said, sharp tools. They got a lot of tools in their weapons in their arsenal, and really strong songwriting abilities. And they know what they are, and they know what they need to be. And even when they experiment, the experiments aren't gross. They don't rub you the wrong way. It's just, Alan didn't really connect with that side of the band, but I listened to it, and they do it really well. So it's a band that has its sound, but there's a bit of freedom in their ranks as far as songwriting ideas, which I think is cool. It's encouraging. It's inspiring. It's impressive. They're a great band, and their latest album is in my favorite top 5 of their albums. I had to dethrone Perfect Man and Secrets of the Weird World to get it on there, because although I love both of those records, I think After Lifelines is just a better, solid, more consistently written album. I don't know. But yeah, and this is also the first time that we've gotten at the end of a very extensive homework session for this channel that I could listen to Rage tomorrow. I'm not burnt out. I don't have Rage fatigue. So that's another testament to how good the songs and the music are. And there's a lot of variety throughout their 20-some records. So, yeah, that's it.
Staying with the comparison to other German bands who emerged at the same time, do they have a Pleasure to Kill? Do they have a Persecution Mania? Do they have a Death or Glory? Or do they have an Imagination from the Other Side? No, they don't. But close to that.
Yeah,
that's a really good point, Jurgen, because folks are kind of asking in the chat, back and forth, trying to figure out why isn't Rage as visible or well known, or why aren't they talked about as much as some of these other bands? And I think what you brought up is a big part of it. We've said this band is very consistent and has a lot of great albums, but I would agree they never had that one album that just everybody knew and just everybody had to hear. That they never had that Keeper of the Seven Keys moment, or that Pleasure to Kill moment, or anything. Even though that overall, they never had a bad period, but they never had that one breakout moment that made everybody focus on Rage. Maybe in the long term that was a good thing. It allowed PV to have that degree of freedom that Marty mentioned, that's allowed him to be consistent, try different things without the pressure of hey man, why don't you just go back and make Pleasure to Kill Volume 2, 3. People still complain about Creator not making another Pleasure to Kill, and it's almost 40 years after the fact. Rage never had that pressure put on them by a label or by a fan base. So even though it did hurt them perhaps in a way, maybe it also paid off and gave them a degree of freedom. They weren't living in the shadow of a given album for the past couple of decades either.
And I will say, Alan, on your comment there on how they never really seemed to really take off, I think that is a North American
in the
perspective.
U.S. Yes, you're in the U.S.
Because you watch them playing in front of these festival crowds. There's a Rage.
Oh yeah, I sometimes forget to qualify that, but yes, when I'm making that statement, it's very much that they didn't take off in North America. Obviously, yes, they didn't last this long by having no following in
No.
Germany and other territories.
But it's weird. When After Lifelines came over, they flew over and did like 2 shows in Canada. That's it. I'm like, wow, that seems like a lot of farting around to come and play. And I saw some video footage from it. It looked like it was a small club. Like, wow, this has got to be a bit of a culture shock for guys that are used to stand up in front of 50,000 people, you know?
I'm sure they knew what they were getting into at this point,
Yeah.
though, too.
Yeah.
So let's what do we get out of this live stream? So let's do a size comparison.
Oh, no.
Okay, here we go. Prepare to be embarrassed.
I'm Northern European. This never goes well for us.
So what? Going back to what I mentioned throughout the live stream, I think PV has the biggest tool of them all. I'm sorry, the biggest toolbox. I said of them all.
Yeah. What do we ask? What is it? I'm missing. What are we talking about? Who do we think is the what?
Marty is flustered.
I'm still thinking it's kind of chilly in here.
Did you just get out of the swimming pool, Marty?
No.
It's chilly in your room, yeah. That's why you only released 2 albums.
Hey, 3rd album coming. We're
At your
mostly
age.
done. Yeah.
I'm at least 15 years younger than you are, so
You had the setup. You had Europe. We're Northern Michigan boys and no drummer forever. So yeah, we're a little late to be getting rolling with the music stuff. It is true. 100% true.
Yeah, but back to Jurgen's point, Rage does have that wide variety of tools they can use.
Yeah,
and they rotate them in and out. Most bands don't have that wide a tool set, or they only used tools for a certain period. They have that early phase, maybe they have that awkward middle phase where they tried something different, and then they just kind of go back to the original tool set. They don't mix and match them nearly as much as Rage has. Some of the other bands may have been more popular, and maybe they were better at one given thing. And that's something else Mike and I were talking about in the chat in terms of why Rage wasn't necessarily a household name in North America. The North American fan base, a lot of times, they want you to be like, that one thing. This is like, Creator. This is the most brutal thrash. Some other thing. This, Walls of Jericho. This is the most insane speed. Rage isn't the most anything other than maybe, the most diverse in the ways they can recombine and rebalance their sound from album to album. But they don't fit neatly into any one of those bins of being, they're not considered for the big 4 of thrash in Germany, for example. If they were, they might have had a higher visibility, but they might have ended up with a much less interesting catalog at the end of the day, too.
I have nothing really more to add than that. I mean, really, it's the songwriting's fantastic, and they don't let it sour. They don't take a long time in between albums where people forget. They're constantly, Rage is always in your face. They keep at it, which, hate to say it, in this day and age, there are so many bands. Frequency is something you need to do to stay relevant. And Rage has done so by, being productive, and they've done so by giving us product that is fun to listen to. It's solid. It isn't tiring. It isn't boring. It's a good album, usually every time. So, yeah, it's just a sign of a good band that knows what it is and knows what it wants. And they're great at it. And I'm really excited to hear new Rage material. It's great to hear he's in the studio.
It sounds like Marty's suggesting that PV has no trouble whatsoever keeping it up.
Nope, he doesn't. And with that, cheers, everybody. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us.
Big thanks to Jurgen for pulling out all the cool Rage items and showing them off too.
Yeah, absolutely. Jurgen, it's great to see you. And what is coming up on Six Beers, Nine Wives? Anything that we need to know about?
I don't know. I don't think about that. When I do a video, it's just usually stuff that I pull out of my ass and just sit down, put on the phone, and talk through it.
Yeah. How about you, Alan? What's coming up on Let's Talk Metal on Tuesday?
I don't know. I've got several things in the can. Thought about doing 1 or 2 new videos, but haven't really had the time to sit down and focus on it. So, gotta see. I'm trying to make sure I don't just do 3 band histories in a row or 3 batches of new wave of British heavy metal singles in a row. So I need to look over what I did the past few weeks and pick something different. But there'll be something up Tuesday morning, as there always is.
Right on. And this weekend, I'm going to try my hardest to get a gruesome review done. So that should be happening this weekend because
Good deal.
death. Because death.
Because death metal is a thing.
Yep.
And next Friday night, we will have a recorded episode, I believe. We did a recording with a fellow in Sweden a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's time to rotate that in, if I remember correctly.
I cannot remember what the Wednesday Album Club is.
You did Crimson Glory this past week, which was
Yep.
very popular, but I don't know what y'all picked. I always tend to miss the very end where you pick the album for the next week. If Logan, you still in the chat? Maybe Logan remembers.
Do you remember Logan? Jim, are you still in the chat? I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll get it. They'll tell me.
They'll be there Wednesday night having a fun discussion about a cool album.
Ah, there it is.
Oh, okay.
Hail the Throne of Nazarene by Incantation.
Never heard of it.
Right on. Well, everybody, you all rule. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the super chats, and all of the people in Discord that talked about Rage all week. Link to the Discord server is in the description. It's current, and if you haven't already, get yourself a heavy metallurgy patch. Jurgen, one will be coming to you to Germany soon-ish. So that's it. Everybody, thank you. We will see you next week. Take care.